warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Who is it?
We're here for the show.
Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie, second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with you three.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox,
That's right, we want to hear from you,
GB News.
Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life: your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle. Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's my new teeth.
It's your new teeth. I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. It's 6 o'clock on Friday the 16th, Saturday the 16th. I'll try that again. Good morning. It's 6 o'clock on Saturday the 16th of December. Today, he really is trying everything. Today, Rishi Sunak goes to Italy to meet their radical right-wing Prime Minister in a desperate attempt to save his premiership and stop the boats. But will this visit achieve anything?
Following the extensive search for the missing mother of 3, Gaynor Lord, Norfolk police confirmed that they found a body in the River Wensum.
Now, here's a big subject, given this time of year. Is turkey the king of Christmas meats? A British festive staple for half a century after a real king made it popular. But with bird flu and changing tastes, how are our turkey farmers faring? We'll bring you that report.
Is this the most Christmassy street in the UK? That's what locals in Glasgow's Lavender Drive think. But how does your street fare? Send us your pictures if you think it beats this. GB Views at gbnews.com.
And Aiden is here with your sport.
Yes, indeed. Good morning. It's a thrilling weekend of Premier League football to look forward to, but could it be the end of the road for a great BBC sporting institution?
And Alex has your weather.
Cloudy, mild and breezy sums up the weather this weekend. For most of us, it will be dry, but where it rains in northwest Scotland, it's going to rain hard, and there are Met Office warnings in place. Join me later for a full forecast.
Yes, well, as you know, you can join in any of our discussions, and we would like to see any of your lovely street pictures. How have you lit up your house and how have your neighbours done? Do email us at gbviews@gbnews.com. And as you can see, this is Breakfast with Anne and Pip. And how are you?
I'm very good, thank you very much for a Saturday morning.
Stephen is pretty poorly at the moment, so he's off. So when did you get the call?
I got a call yesterday. I had a little bit of a Christmas do last night, which I was a very good girl. I left early and I was in bed for midnight-ish.
What?
Yeah,
You were in bed at midnight?
not enough sleep.
And
not
up a
enough
couple of
sleep.
hours later. Shift work for you, isn't it? Well, anyway, do let us know what your feelings are and particularly those pictures, please. How are you spending Christmas? And we will talk about turkeys later as well, because people sort of see it as a thing they have to do now, even if they don't like turkey. Do you?
I do like turkey at Christmas. But if you're veggie, there's always tofurkey. That's another one you can...
Oh, no, that sounds gross.
Well,
I just go
there
with
might be
vegetables.
vegetarians watching.
Yeah. Well, I know, and there's a vegetarian here watching.
A nice nut roast.
Yes, I do like a nice nut roast, but it has to have a nice sauce and everything as well. That's the thing with most vegetarian food. You give up the sort of the meat with its oomph and its juices. And if you just do vegetables or a nut roast or something like that that's made like tofu, you have to have a really good sauce.
Yes, yeah.
I like a black pepper sauce myself. Creamy black pepper sauce. That's probably what I'll go for. Anyway, on to important matters with the Prime Minister, because Rishi Sunak's in Rome today for a meeting with Italy's radical right Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, with the pair expected to discuss what they call their shared perspectives on illegal immigration.
Rishi Sunak will also be attending a right-wing conference organised by the ruling party, the Brothers of Italy, whose guest list includes the Albanian Prime Minister and Elon Musk.
Yes, that'll be quite a gathering, won't it? Let's find out more from our political commentator, Peter Spencer, who joins us now in the studio.
Good morning.
Lovely to see you. It's interesting to know what possibly Rishi and the Italian Prime Minister can talk about that will push things along at all. But she's got very fundamentalist views on how to deal with immigrants, hasn't she?
She has fundamentalist views. She also has a very big problem. I mean, we worry about illegal immigration in this country. The fact is that 3 times as many people go to Italy. And so, yeah, she's actually adopted a sort of a not wholly dissimilar route to Rishi Sunak, in that she wants to have a asylum seeker processing centre in Albania.
In Albania?
Oh yes, and but she's also getting grief from the judiciary there, just the same as Sunak has been from the Rwanda story, which everyone admits is pushing the boat out quite a bit anyway. I mean, you have to admire Sunak's sort of sheer energy. I mean, any normal person, when he's only just got back from Dubai for the climate change conference, would be pretty knackered, let's face it. Yeah. Whereas, in actual fact, between all these things, he fitted in a school visit at which one of the kids said to him, "What would you like for Christmas, Prime Minister?" He said, "Do you know, a day off would be nice." Yes. Which is rather sweet, isn't it?
Why is he going then? Is it to appeal to the right-wing arm of his party?
Well, I mean, he and Maloney actually they've got a shared perspective on the illegal immigrant thing. They once, the two of them penned a letter to the European Union saying, look, would you mind helping us out a bit here? So he wants to show that kind of solidarity. Also, he wants to send a message to his grumpy folk back home.
Who don't think he's right-wing enough.
Who don't think he's right. Well, absolutely right. Yeah, I mean, it is quite interesting, all that stuff that we had this sort of the Great Revolt, and we'll huff and we'll puff and we'll blow your house down, turned into we'll huff and we'll puff and we'll come back to you on that. But they most certainly will. We've got so many stages of the parliamentary process, both in the Commons and in the Lords, before it actually becomes law, if it actually becomes law. And remember, the Lords can delay it for a long time, and the election's not a million miles away. So he wants to sort of demonstrate that he's doing his stuff, and at the same time there's a by-election likely in the offing in Blackpool.
Well, that's exactly. Things couldn't get worse.
Well, not really, no. I mean, because that is archetypal red wall territory, and you know, the people switched from Labour to the Conservatives on the promise of getting Brexit done, so you sort of know where they're coming from. But I had to say that, to my mind, he's built himself quite an elephant trap, because when everyone was getting so grumpy about stuff, he turned to the moderate wing, which is about 100 of them, for heaven's sake, and said, look, we're not going to change we're not going to make it any tougher. And then to the other lot, he sort of, well, you know, we might just bit of this, bit of that. So he's sort of dug himself a hole into which he very easily could fall in.
Do you think he might have a little bit of time at Christmas to put his feet up, you know, as he's reading the Radio Times or watching the telly, and think, do you know what? I'm going to call a general election in the spring.
It is a runner. I mean, the thought police in Starmer's mob. I mean, they are working on that likelihood, and they note that, for example, that the national insurance thing cut has been brought forward, which suggests that they want to get that feel-good factor nicely in place in time.
They've got a big job to do there, though, haven't they? Improving the feel-good factor.
Well, I'd say about 100%, give or take.
The thing is, apparently particularly Conservative prime ministers, but they'll do anything to hang on to power. And I suppose when you look at it, what's he got to lose by hanging on to power and just hoping things get better?
Well, a bit like the guy in the Charles Dickens thing, that something might turn up. Yeah, I mean, that is. I mean, I'm sure these calculations are going on all the time, to be honest. I just note that, as I say, that the Labour folk are gearing up for in their judgment, the likelihood of
They've got to be ready at any point.
Well, of course, they have got to be ready, absolutely right, yeah. And so, you know, because up until now, they've been just a little bit sort of vague about exactly what they would do.
How proactive does Labour actually need to be? Because the Tories seem to be imploding. So do Labour can they sort of sit back a bit and watch it all go to pot, rather than actually earn the chance to lead?
Well, I mean, I think it'd be quite nice if they could sort of present some sort of prospectus to the electorate. Because
the electorate's still not convinced of what Labour
No, that's one problem. And the other problem is also, you watch the opinion polls and you see the Reform Party on the far right. Its poll rating is gradually creeping up. And in some of the places that the switchers as many as switchers are going to the Reform Party as the Labour Party. So they do need to have a bit of a coherent sort of prospectus.
They could almost be the kingmakers, couldn't they, if Reform do well?
There's a thought.
They could get enough seats to make life almost impossible for the Tories, but maybe possible for a Labour.
Yeah, precisely so. Yeah.
And that's an extraordinary...
It is.
Because they've come almost from nowhere very quickly.
Sure, and it says something about how tricky it's going to be, how volatile the British electorate, how volatile and polarised the British electorate it has become, which means that the election, although it looks like it's in the bag, there's a little bit of slippy slidey going on here. And of course, the other thing that Starmer, we note, has become a little bit more confident lately and a little bit more sort of outgoing, a little bit less looking a little bit less like he just swallowed a wasp. But he has to be so careful not to appear cocky.
Where are the polls, Peter? is it still about 20-point gap?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, nothing much changes. I mean, every time he tries something, we had the King's Speech, we had the budget, we had the autumn statement, and every time they try it, it's sort of, there's a slight sort of blip, and then it just goes back to where it was.
Never enough, is it?
Yeah, because I mean, you know, you've got 13 years of Tory rule, and you've got stagnating sort of public services, stagnating living standards, and there is that clear sense, oh, let's give the other lot a chance.
Do you eat turkey at Christmas?
Well, it depends really what my daughter puts in front of me.
Oh, you lucky thing.
Yeah. No, I have a choice at Christmas that I can either go to my daughter's for Christmas lunch, or I can stay at home and they can come down to me, cut me into very small pieces and feed me to the birds.
Yeah.
Quite simple.
Okay. Well, that's an option, isn't it? Thanks very much indeed. It's lovely to see you so early on a Saturday morning. It is indeed Saturday, the 16th of December, and it's 11 minutes past 6. You're watching Breakfast with Anne and Pip this morning.
Police say there is no evidence of third-party involvement after finding a body in the hunt for missing Norwich mother Gaynor Lord.
Yeah, specialist diving teams retrieved the body from the River Wensum in the city yesterday, a week after the 55-year-old woman went missing.
Norfolk police say the identity of the body has not been confirmed, but Gaynor Lord's family, she has 3 children, they have been informed.
Yeah, very interesting to see how differently the whole thing has been handled since the last time, sadly, this sort of thing happened. Let's bring in the former head of Missing Persons Unit, Mike Neville. Good morning, Mike. Lovely to see you. Thank you very much for joining us so early. What are your feelings about this? We have seen a very different police operation from what we saw with Nicola Bulley, for instance.
Yes, well, I think the search and the investigation has been quite professional. We have, they've done a good work with the trawl of CCTV to see the movements at the time, establish some kind of motive. We've seen the actual search, very professionally conducted, a tragic end, but the search in a river like that is a very difficult and dangerous task, and well done to the police divers. I hope it's a terrible thing, but let's hope some closure for the family. And the other thing as well, the major issue with the Nicola Bulley case was the police handling of the media and the way that Norfolk police seem to have been dealing with the media, issuing details whenever they've got them. Lancashire police, it was a bit chaotic. They portrayed Nicola Bulley as sort of Mrs. Average when she wasn't at all. There's all sorts of issues. Having painted a false narrative, they then backtracked and sort of, instead of releasing some details, they released all sorts of medical details and personal things that should never have been said. So I just think this has been dealt with in a professional way. But the facts are, it's a human tragedy for the family, especially at this time of year. So I can only wish them well, but I praise the police and their handling of this matter.
And what sort of support, Mike, will Gaynor Lord's family be getting? I mean, she's the mother of 3 children. They've been waiting for, over a week for information about her whereabouts, and then to hear the worst news possible.
Well, the police know with any critical incident or a major investigation, appoint a specially trained family liaison officer who is the one who passes all details on and passes all details back to the senior investigating officer of what the family's thinking, saying, so they can manage that as well. And so that officer will be used, and they won't be withdrawn straight away. There'll be all sorts of supports offered around bereavement, counselling and the like. And so, as I say, with major inquiries, that family liaison officer is of vital importance.
OK, Mick, thanks very much indeed for joining us. It is a very sad story, but it looks as though it's been handled so much better because, frankly, we don't really know very much at all about Gaynor Lord, and nor should we. Unlike Nicola Bulley, where we sort of thought we knew, and many people thought they knew too much. So, God bless is all you can say, I think, with that. Right, it's 6:15 exactly. If you've just joined us, a reminder of our top stories this morning. Well, he really is trying everything. Today, Rishi Sunak goes to Italy to meet their radical right-wing Prime Minister in a desperate attempt to save his premiership, but also stop boats. But will it?
Following the extensive search for the missing mother of 3, Gaynor Lord, Norfolk police confirmed that they found a body in the River Wensum.
A subject of intense debate, this will get you talking around the brekkie table this morning, is turkey, the king of Christmas meats. A British festive staple for half a century after a real king made it popular. But with bird flu and changing tastes, how are our turkey farmers faring? We'll bring you that report.
And is this the most Christmassy street in the UK? That's what locals in Glasgow's Lavender Drive think. But how does your street fare? Theirs is pretty cool because everybody seems to be joining in. If you've got a great street full of lights and trees and baubles, then do take a picture and send it to us. gbviews@gbnews.com.
The death of Friends star Matthew Perry has been ruled an accident from the acute effects of ketamine. That's according to medical officials in Los Angeles.
Piers Morgan has accused the Duke of Sussex of wanting to destroy the British monarchy. The former tabloid editor made the claims following Harry's partial victory, well, no, it was a complete victory, really, in High Court phone hacking claims. Morgan said he had zero knowledge of the practice.
Irish Premier Leo Varadkar has said there is a very clear majority, but not unanimity in the EU for a ceasefire in Gaza, a day after saying the bloc had lost credibility on the issue.
And Harry and Meghan have chosen not to include a picture of their children on their annual Christmas card. Instead, they've chosen a photo from the closing ceremony of this year's Invictus Games, which took place in Germany. Yeah, we'll show you a picture of that card a bit later. It's quite interesting to see the Christmas cards that posh people put out. But it's a lovely...
posh people?
Posh people, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because I think...
What do scruffy people do?
Well, they don't do family cards,
no, they don't.
Do they?
Yeah, they don't. They're much more simple.
Yeah, but I mean, Rishi Sunak's card is a bit extraordinary. Have you seen it?
It's black and white, isn't it?
It's black and white with funny little coloured bobble hats, Santa hats put on the characters and a sort of crayon star in the sky. Looks a bit odd.
I like the fact that his dog makes an appearance, though.
Yeah.
His dog's very sweet. But Harry and Meghan's card's quite modern, isn't it? And what I don't like is I do like cards to have a bit of a Christmas theme.
Yeah.
And
theirs isn't.
Even the Prince and Princess of Wales is the black and white family photo, which is lovely portrait.
But not a Christmas card one, I don't think. Weird, isn't it? What do you do? If you've got a family Christmas card, love to see it. I mean, some people really do, don't they? Or they put a Santa hat on the dog or something like that.
That's what I do.
Send that out, yeah. I might do that by WhatsApp, I think. Anyway, do let us know how you're sending out your cards and what you think of Harry's Christmas card when we show it you. Still to come on the programme, the BBC have axed Question of Sport after 50 years on the air.
What went so very wrong? Well, sports journalist Aiden McGee will be joining us in the studio to tell us all about it. That and much more in just a moment here on Breakfast.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Oh!
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 6:21. You're watching and listening to Breakfast this morning with Anne and Pip.
Now, around 10 million turkeys are eaten in the UK every year, with 25% of Britons buying our Christmas birds months in advance to prepare for the big day.
Turkeys, of course, have been a staple of the UK festive feast for nearly 500 years, apparently after King Henry VIII popularised eating turkey. I thought he ate anything, actually, at his banquets, but there you go.
Well, our reporter Anna Riley visited a turkey farm in East Yorkshire to see how they're faring, because last year, well, that was a difficult year because bird flu wiped out more than 500,000 wild birds. Here's what she found out.
John Holtby has farmed turkeys in Yorkshire for over 20 years. But last year, the industry was in crisis when over 500,000 turkeys had to be culled or died due to bird flu. This Christmas, John and other turkey farmers up and down the country are hoping for a better festive season.
People got rather spooked by bird flu and stopped buying, so the orders were very slow. They nearly caught up towards the end. We didn't get bird flu, but we had bird flu nearby. This year, there are recent cases of bird flu, so we are worried about it as we run towards Christmas.
Free-range turkeys do cost more, but with this comes a better quality of meat.
Most people think of Christmas and think of a turkey, so we're trying to provide the best possible turkey for them to make their Christmas dinner the most important dinner of the year. It's like anything, you sort of pay, you get what you pay for.
Here, the turkeys are reared from day-old chicks.
We have them under a heat lamp in a stable. From there, they then get brought out here when they're about a month or two old. And then they're brought to maturity. So these are really the only birds that actually are reared to maturity, which is what gives them the flavour as well, because they have natural fats that are allowed to develop.
This Christmas, the NFU want people to buy British.
I encourage people to buy the best turkey that they can afford. Now, that might be from their local farm or their local butcher, it might be from a supermarket, it might even be a frozen product. Buy the best you can afford. It's all about creating memories at Christmas. And I don't think anybody sits back from the table and says, goodness me, that turkey was cheap. But they might say, goodness me, that turkey was good.
But no matter how good the turkey, some in Yorkshire won't be following tradition.
I'm actually vegetarian, so I'll be having some sort of nut roast with the corn and various other bits as well. But yeah, no turkey for me.
It's my mum that buys free birds roast, so it's just something we've been brought up with, having free bird roast instead of turkey.
Turkey, probably a good option. Something to get you started. Mashed potatoes, that's a good one. A bit of peas, carrots, bit of gravy, if you're feeling a bit daring.
I love beef. There's no better than beef, to be honest.
I'll have for Christmas prawns.
And with the leftovers of the Christmas turkey, families are bound to be gobbling it into the new year. Anna Riley, GB News.
Gosh, they're funny things, aren't they? They look like dinosaurs to me, but they taste differently, apparently.
Do you know what do you know what I have with my turkey? Not cranberry sauce, horseradish. Don't even ask what that is about. Listen, I'm not posh, Anne. I don't care. If I want horseradish with my turkey, I'll have...
Well, that's what I say. I don't think, don't do what everybody tells you to do.
Exactly.
Have what you fancy, particularly on
I have
Christmas
all
Day.
all sorts of dips.
I tell you what, shall we talk to a turkey farmer? He's Gareth Wynne-Jones in North Wales. A very good morning to you, sir.
Morning.
Hello. How has your year been? Because, I mean, it wasn't very good last year. You had so many problems.
Sorry, Anne, Pip, I literally can't hear a word. The sound's totally gone off my ear side. Can you hear me?
OK, well, we'll try and fix the gremlins in the works and see what we can do. But, yes, we don't have turkey. We've never had turkey because we found a long time ago that we prefer the taste of chicken. That was when I ate meat.
Right.
And so we still have a very large chicken. And then the boys have a go at, other things.
Because a lot of people prefer goose, don't they?
Yes.
I don't know whether goose takes longer to cook.
I would have thought so, because they're much bigger animals, aren't they? Can we rejoin Gareth, I think, now? Let's go back to Gareth Wyn-Jones. Can you hear me now, my dear?
Oh, no, we can't hear you.
I don't
this is going well.
We can't hear you now.
Yeah. I never thought I'd be wishing to hear two women first thing in the morning, I'll tell you.
Stop it now. Gareth, what's your last year been like? And how are your turkeys gobbling?
They're doing really well. So we bring them in August, and then we fatten them up for Christmas, and they are really looking well this year. We only keep 15. They're for family and friends, and we've been keeping turkeys, since I was a young boy with my father. It's traditional for us. We used to keep geese as well, ducks, and a few capons. This year it's just turkeys for us, and we'll have a nice piece of Welsh mountain lamb, our own lamb as well, and a nice piece of ham as well.
Where do you stand, Gareth, on this suggestion about a vaccine that would provide better protection for the birds from this flu?
Well, you have to go with the science. If it's something that's workable, do it. But we do vaccine a few other animals on the farm, and it tends to work with some things. But, I'd rather keep it as natural as we possibly can. I don't want to be injecting things if we don't really need to. Bird flu, we've got blue tongue, we've got TB, we've got a lot of problems within the industry, and we have to look at ways to control these things. So we have to go with the science, and sometimes, if it's a vaccine, well, it's a vaccine that we have to use.
How is demand as well? I mean, is that falling off because the world is becoming a little more vegetarian and even vegan? Well, it is.
There's nothing wrong with a bit of tofurkey, Gareth.
Yeah, where you can stick that turkey and the stuff in. Not for me, to be honest with you. Look, I think if we look at the price of lamb and beef, it's flying. It's absolutely flying. I disagree that we're turning more vegetarian and vegan. I think what we have to have is a freedom of choice in everything we eat, and I believe that meat's a part of a healthy, balanced diet. And for me, I've been eating meat all my life. I'm 56. Look at them guns. You know what I mean?
You're a marvellous figure of a man, sir. But what about you yourself? I was going to say, I've met turkey farmers before, and they're very proud of their produce, and I know you are too. So what do you eat on Christmas Day? And if it's turkey, what do you serve it with? What's your favourite Christmas lunch?
So we have turkey, and again, everything I produce on this farm, I would want to be eating it myself. And that's really important. Anything that's produced here, I want to be feeding other people's family with exactly the same thing. So my favourite is, the turkey, but we'll have a piece of lamb as well and ham. But we eat that for the next 3 or 4 days after it. Nothing will go to waste up here. Roast potatoes in goose fat as well. I really absolutely adore them. And pigs in blankets, and I mean big pigs in blankets. So you get the big sausage with that rolled around in bacon.
Oh, I almost prefer the leftovers to the Christmas Day lunch, to be honest.
Yeah, and I love it if you get a turkey that's actually too big for the family for one meal, because you can eat it for the next few days. Cold cuts are lovely afterwards, aren't they?
Yeah, and ladies, if you really want a fantastic recipe, look for a Boxing Day pie, okay? Because my wife does a Boxing Day pie. So she cuts all the veggies, and then she puts the turkey and some ham in it. and then she puts the gravy on top, and then she puts a crust on it, and that's what we have on Boxing Day. So that's our Boxing Day pie. And I go shooting on Boxing Day, and I come home to a lovely Boxing Day pie, and that makes my Christmas as much as the Christmas dinner.
That sounds brilliant. It's a sort of traditional country Christmas. Thank you so much for joining us. We persevered in the end, and in the end we could hear each other, which is always good. Thank you. Have a lovely Christmas.
And you.
Thank you. Ah, it sounds nice and tasty, doesn't it? I'll bet they serve a good spread up there, don't you? Right, should we talk sport now? Aiden's here. He's mysteriously appeared at the end of the table. Probably means he's crept in. Probably means it's
good morning to you both.
Good morning. I tell you what was interesting amongst all the other sports stories, Aiden, is, as we know, the Mirror basically lost their case about hacking to Prince Harry yesterday. It was proved, the judge said, that Harry had been hacked by Mirror journalists. And so you wonder whether the Mirror would bother to report this at all or not. And they haven't. They've gone for a completely different story. They obviously said, you know, put something else on the front page. But actually, they've come up with a cracking story because it's something that will concern a lot of people. And that's that the much-loved question of sport isn't loved enough anymore, and it's going to be axed.
It's a BBC institution, 53 years, I believe it's been on air. There's never been any breaks in that period of time, but the BBC announced yesterday that would be the end of it. They blamed production costs, inflation. I imagine part of that is the fact that it's in Manchester now. It has been in Manchester before. It's fitted between London and Manchester. I think it's more expensive to get guests to the area. I think at one time it was the jewel in the crown. It peaked at 19 million viewing figures back in 1987.
It's Sue Barker's day as well.
It was when Princess Anne was on
yes.
as a panellist that I think the figures were that high. But they've messed around with it, haven't they, in recent years?
They have.
And I think, personally, that's what spoilt it. It's not like it used to be when it was Bill Beaumont and Ian Botham were the...
And Emlyn Hughes, don't forget, as well.
Emlyn Hughes, yeah.
So Emlyn Hughes, there was an incident on the picture board, wasn't he? He failed to recognise Princess Anne.
Yes.
And he said he identified her as a bloke. And then the following week she came into the studio and was a guest, and that's when it peaked at 19 million back in 1987. But it's the format, as Pip says.
19 million.
19 million, yeah.
Can't imagine that now.
Yeah, no.
Different era for only
for those sort of figures.
Only 4 channels back then, of course. I mean, that was before the advent of cable and satellite, etc. But so the proliferation of channels has affected things. Viewing figures are down to below 1 million now. So, I mean, you look at Pips mentions the format. I mean, it's gone a bit too sort of banter-centric.
Well, they don't just have... It always used to be sports personalities, wasn't it? And now it doesn't have to be sports personalities.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. But also, it's not just the format, but it's also the timing. I mean, it used to be always on, I think it was a Wednesday at 8 p.m. or 7:30, or after the soap operas have been on. Prime time. And, I mean, my friend of mine said to me he's more likely to see it at 1 in the morning when he comes in from his night shift. I mean, that'll be a repeat, but I couldn't tell you in the last couple of years when it's actually been on. Sue Barker only left in 2021.
Yes, that's right.
And I think she was much loved as a host, wasn't she?
She was indeed.
Paddy McGuinness is really great, but I think she had such a following.
The guests as well, Sam Quirk, Ugo Monye, I just don't think they're famous enough to be on a programme like that. I really don't.
And, of course, a lot of sporting figures now, because I was watching this podcast special, The Good, the Bad and the Ugly, a rugby one.
Yes.
Done with Mike Tyndall and... I can't remember his name because I don't know enough rugby names.
James Huskell.
Yes, and Princess Anne. And it was really, really good. So, I mean, if you want your sport, you go to particular sports channels and sports outlets.
There's so much specialised material now, but I still think it should have had a place. I mean, it's not as simple as to say, look, they've rejigged the personnel. They put Paddy McGuinness in there, and they've obviously got 2 new captains. It's not as simple as saying that fiddling around with the format and the timing and everything did for it. I mean, in Sue Barker's, the latter time of that Sue Barker was there, it was dwindling anyway, it was struggling. And I think the BBC lost patience with it probably a few years ago. It was just a question of when, if not if.
And also, Aidan, the media landscape has changed.
Yeah.
Inexorably.
Yes.
Without
doubt. I mean, I can access probably about 500 channels at home. I think most people can as well, and that'll probably go up in the next few years rather than the 4 that we were used to back in 1987. But I do remember those episodes. It was very funny when Emlyn Hughes failed to recognise one of the royal family on the board.
I think the BBC is saying they're resting it, so they're not ruling out a comeback.
No, certainly not.
In the future,
that was interesting. They said that it's not in production at the moment, but I think it'll be a while before we see it again. We may see see it at special occasion. You may see it at things like charity evenings or Christmas.
There used to always be a Christmas special.
Yes, they did. I remember there was a Spitting Image version, I think, back in back in the late 80s. Yeah.
Well, I think a programme's got to have support from its channel as well, and you sort of sense that they probably haven't had much support. They let it die.
Yeah, they have. But I mean, you look at Football Focus as well. I mean, again, they've suffered a massive drop in viewing figures. I think that hasn't gone, but I think that might well be next. There's lots of controversy around the BBC Sports Personality of the Year. I mean, that's been shown on a Tuesday night this year, and the list just doesn't look very enticing. It doesn't look as if... I mean, there's a list that could be described as a good list of runners-up. There's no outstanding candidate there that you might say they're the outstanding winner,
Who would you say is the outstanding
this year? Well, Rory McIlroy's on there, but he's still waiting for a major. He hasn't won a major since 2011, so I'm not sure he's justified as being on there. But I thought he's probably got as good a case as anybody else. It was a pretty lame list, I have to say.
OK, let's move on to the idea of referees, which are very much in the news at the moment. But apparently they're finding another way to make a bit of money.
They are. I mean, it's not new. I mean, back in September, it emerged that referees in the Premier League were going abroad and on their days off, international weekends and so forth, to go and make some money in other countries. They're highly respected still because it's the Premier League. However, there was a fiasco back in September involving Luis Diaz of Liverpool. He scored a perfectly good goal at Tottenham and VAR failed to allow the goal. And then it emerged subsequently days later that the two officials in charge, Daniel Cook and Darren England, had been, I wouldn't say moonlighting because it was a separate freelance exercise or assignment, if you like, but they'd been, just the day before, they'd been flying back from the UAE, where they'd been taking control of matches there. Howard Webb, the head of referees, has decided this week, and I suppose he would say this, but he said that had nothing to do with the decision that was made on the day, and so they're going to be allowed to keep freelancing in other countries. And a lot of people would say this is controversial, Anne, because the standard of refereeing this season has simply not been good enough. They've been accused of being lazy because they're on the pitch and they're saying, well, actually, I didn't really see that. Is that an infringement? Is that a goal? Is it not a goal?
Is that because of VAR?
Well, yeah, they're relying on it. They know they've got that safety net, and so they're transferring the decision making.
In some countries.
No, they won't. It's going to be harder. It's going to be old school. It's going back to actually getting the whistle out on the pitch
so
and making decisions.
So it might make them better in a strange way.
Possibly, but you're increasing their workload. And I mean, they're marking their own homework in a way. When the referee's chief, he's not exactly going to come out and say, look, we've been silly. We've been allowing our referees to go overseas. So it was no great surprise that he came out and said that yesterday. But it's going to cause some backlash, I would have thought, in the next few days, because, depending on how they do this weekend.
And this is why, Aidan, we need the female refs to come in while they're off with Saudi Arabia.
We were talking, Anne, weren't we? I mean, that was... I remember Amy Rayner. She was the assistant referee back in 2007 at Luton Town, because I remember the Luton Town manager coming out and criticising her and making some really sexist, horrible remarks, which barely made the back page of the papers that weekend. And I was thinking back then, surely we're going to see a female official in the middle of the pitch rather than just on the running the line. It's taken until now for that to happen. I think that's Can
we talk about that next time you come in?
Absolutely, we can. Yeah.
Okay, because we're running out of time now. But it's a very important subject we should be going into.
Once I start, I don't stop. Sorry.
No, that's very true. Right, 6:38. If you've just joined us, a reminder then of the top stories this morning. Well, he really is trying everything. Today, Rishi Sunak goes to Italy to meet their radical right-wing Prime Minister in a desperate attempt to save his premiership and stop the boats. But will it achieve anything?
A body has been found in the search for Gaynor Lord.
Following the extensive search for the missing mother of 3, Gaynor Lord, Norfolk police confirmed that they found a body in the River Wensum.
The death of Friends star Matthew Perry has been ruled an accident from the acute effects of ketamine. The toxicology report also added drowning and heart disease as contributing factors. And the report stated that Perry was receiving ketamine infusion therapy for depression and anxiety. He had been open about his struggles with addiction and sobriety, and also set up a sober living facility for men with similar issues.
Piers Morgan has accused the Duke of Sussex of wanting to destroy the British monarchy. The former tabloid editor made the claims following Harry's partial victory in a High Court phone hacking claim. Piers Morgan said he had zero knowledge of the practice.
And the Irish Premier, Leo Varadkar, has said there is a very clear majority, but not unanimity, in the EU for a ceasefire in Gaza, a day after saying the bloc had lost credibility on the issue.
And Harry and Meghan have chosen not to include a picture with their children on their annual Christmas card. Instead, this is it. The couple chose a photo from the closing ceremony of this year's Invictus Games, which took place in Dusseldorf.
Now, how would you like to win £10,000 cash, brand new tech and shopping vouchers?
Well, you could be the winner of our very first Great British giveaway. Here's all the details of how you could make those prizes yours.
It's the Great British Giveaway, your chance to grab some amazing prizes and start your new year the right way. You could win an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. Imagine having all of that extra cash in your bank account. We'll also bring you bang up to date with the very latest iPhone 15 Pro Max. And we'll give you £500 worth of shopping vouchers to spend in the store of your choice. For another chance to win the iPhone, the vouchers and £10,000 cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB01, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday the 5th of January. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Good luck.
And a happy Christmas coming up. Should we ban under-16s from social media? The government seems to think so, unless they have parental permission. That and much, much more in Headline Makers, coming next.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this? It's on your teeth.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
A very good morning to you if you've just switched on. Stephen's not very well at the moment, and Pip has stepped into the fold, which is nice. Yeah, so you're watching Breakfast with Anne and Pip this morning. We're also joined now by journalist and commentator Nikki Hodgson and our showbiz reporter Stephanie Tecci. Lovely to see you both. And there's a lot of other news around, isn't there? There's politics going on, and there's Prince Harry's fight against the Mirror yesterday. But a lot of the newspapers tried to find lots of different things to talk about. Nikki, tell us about Hungary vetoing aid for Ukraine.
Yeah, so Viktor Orban, who's basically a dictator and the PM of Hungary, has, vetoed, I think it's a £42 billion package of aid due to Ukraine via the EU. And Putin has come out in favour of this. He likes the fact that Orban has said no, and obviously that boosts his war effort. I mean, Orban is famously...
He's actually an elected Prime Minister.
He is elected. He is elected, I've got to say that. But he's kind of a modern-style dictator. I mean, I don't think the elections are very easy or very fair. But, you know, he discriminates against anyone who's kind of not Christian. He's quite anti-Semitic, and, you know, Zelensky obviously is a Jew. There's lots of kind of different things going on about this. But very interestingly, he hasn't vetoed Ukraine's application to become a member of the EU. Oh, that's interesting. So that's quite... So he's obviously playing some kind of weird game there with thinking, let them be in the EU, but don't give them any money.
And the state of this war at the moment is that Ukraine's counter-offensive has lost momentum.
Yeah.
And that Russia are starting to... Yeah.
It's kind of
starting to take control.
Slipped under the radar due to what's been going between Israel and Hamas. Like, Zelensky's been saying, hello, there's still the war going on between Russia and Ukraine. And I think a lot of people have just taken their eyes off the ball, which is giving Russia more power, I think.
And also a suggestion that Zelensky could be losing support in his own country as well. And Vladimir Klitschko seems to be...
rising up.
About that,
well, he, from the beginning of this war, he's been like a strong candidate, you know, to kind of lead Ukraine. So with Zelensky, I think he needs more allies.
Well, he has been urging all world leaders not to forget and asking them for aid. I think we've got a clip of how he's gone about doing that, videoing messages to world leaders. Well, I thought we had a clip, but we haven't. Never mind. No, don't worry, you can imagine it. Right, Stephanie, Prince Harry.
Oof.
A great day for truth.
Yeah, he says he's feeling like he's been vindicated, feeling like it's been affirming for him. As we know, Prince Harry's been on this crusade against the media. To be honest, I think it goes deeper than this phone hacking. I think he's always blamed the media for the cause of his mother's death. So I think for him, it is about getting revenge. And he's had this judge who's ruled that 15 of the 33 articles he complains about were unlawful. The information that how it was gathered through unlawful means. Obviously, Piers Morgan's come out and said he knew nothing about the phone hacking.
He was, however, the editor of
at
Mirror.
the time, so I don't know how that happened. But Prince Harry was seeking millions, and he was only rewarded £140,000. So there is questions now: is there going to be criminal proceedings that are going to follow? Which I think Prince Harry will want, but it's much harder to prove. You're going to need that evidence in a court.
See, that's what I feel. I don't know what you think, Nikki. That's what I feel is so unfair about this whole thing. That the onus is on you, Prince Harry in this case, to prove he was hacked. How can you prove something that was done secretly against you?
Yeah,
absolutely.
And that you couldn't even have been aware of at the time?
Absolutely. I mean, it's just so damning, isn't it? Because we had the Leveson inquiry that was meant to tackle all the phone hacking previously, and it feels like nothing's really changed.
No.
I mean, I imagine it still goes on now, actually. I'll be really honest.
Some of the hacking was going on during the Leveson inquiry.
Yes, which is
that's what this judge found.
Yeah, it's just absolutely bonkers. And, you know, I do feel sorry for Prince Harry in this regard because his whole life has been lived, you know, under a lens from being a very little boy. You know, he's never had, like, peace and quiet, really.
Yeah.
And so you kind of can't blame him for moving to Sausalito. Well, it's a very nice place to live, by the way, as well. But, I mean, you sort of can't blame him for wanting to move on from that. And I actually credit to him for standing up in court and doing that.
It's very brave.
It actually is very brave, because he knew that he was going to get a load of backlash for that.
Do you think this will change public opinion of Harry? Because, you know, it still doesn't take away from the fact that he has trashed his own family very publicly.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know necessarily. I mean, I think the kind of thorn in his side is Meghan, really, because people really have a distaste for her and how she goes about things. I mean, I think Harry could come back into the fold. I think the British people would welcome him back, but I think he'd have to be divorced, probably.
I think he's done too much damage. I think it's gone too far with Harry and his kind of attacks against his own family and him and Meghan. I think it's like he's left a bitter taste in the public's mouth, and I just think...
Piers Morgan, obviously, wasn't going to say, terribly sorry I hacked you or anything like that. So he came out yesterday and he just tried to turn it... Yes, the whole court case was about whether or not appalling behaviour was used by the press, particularly unlawful behaviour. And that was proven. And you can't get away from that. But Piers Morgan chose to just sort of make it about Harry and the bad way he's treated his own family. This is what Piers Morgan had to say about the whole thing.
The judgment finds there is just one article relating to the Prince, published in the Daily Mirror during my entire 9-year tenure as editor, that he thinks may have involved some unlawful information gathering. To be clear, I had then, and still have, zero knowledge of how that particular story was gathered. All his other claims against the Daily Mirror under my leadership were rejected. With regard to the judge's other references to me in his judgment, I also want to reiterate, as I've consistently said for many years now, I've never hacked a phone or told anybody else to hack a phone. And nobody has produced any actual evidence to prove that I did.
Yeah, well, you can leave that if you want to, I suppose.
I mean, one interesting point about this as well, though, is that he was never called to give evidence. Not from either side.
Yeah.
He's probably quite annoyed about that because he probably would have liked to stay.
I think he would have done. And I mean, what you saw there is a typical Piers response. You didn't expect him to be a shrinking violet about all this.
But he's also kind of laying down the gauntlet because if I knew that he did hack something or knew about hacking, well, I'd leak it to the press now. I mean, I don't. But if anyone's out there and can, it'd be quite fun to see.
But I do think Harry, in a way, he has changed the media landscape. As you guys know, I work for newspapers now, and he has so many cases coming against The Sun, The Mail, and now journalists are under pressure to prove how did you get that story, who are your sources. So if anything, Harry is changing the media landscape.
And that's why yesterday was so important. Because frankly, no matter how much Mirror said it was nothing to do with hacking, we've never hacked, the judge found they had. And that's the most important thing,
and
really,
the amount of money they've had to pay, over £100 million. They've had to get rid of 450 journalists, which they're trying to say is down to circulation, but it's because they're paying for court cases like this. So Harry is getting his wish, and he is destroying the media, especially newspapers.
Well, he's destroying bad practices within the newspapers. So I hope he isn't destroying the newspapers. Right, let's move on to... the UK considering a crackdown on under-16s using social media. Can this ever be actually done?
No, this is just one of those silly stories. But it's like a policy the Tories are putting out before election season to try and win the votes of parents. They want to ban under-16s using things like TikTok and Instagram. There's no way they can do it. Children can always find a way around this. You simply just have to put a date of birth in most of these. They don't verify you with an ID card or something because children don't have those. So, it's just one of those... I mean, there are so many problems with young people on social media. We've had some terrible deaths of children that have used it. There are children with eating disorders that have been propelled to be very, very poorly indeed. There was Molly Russell, if you remember, she took her own life at 14. And it's just like we have to do something. But what we have to do is actually to get the companies to take responsibility. The social media companies have to do something. It can't come from government. It won't work this way around.
I think it should be the parents, though. I think parents have much more power to say. Actually, I've seen with my friends, like, on a weekend, they'll give their children maybe 2-3 hours on social media, and after that, you have to read your books, you have to clean the house. So it's not actually up to the social media organisations. Parents need to lay down the law and say, stop scrolling.
You can also
I wonder how many parents or families will sit down on Christmas Day to lunch and the kids will have their phones on the table. They cannot help but check it. I was with a friend once, and we were all sitting at dinner, and she just sat there and she said, "Can we not sit for an hour and a half and talk to each other without looking at our screens?"
I agree.
Especially on Christmas Day.
Oh, honestly. But it will be happening.
It will.
It's affecting their communication skills, like their interaction skills. All I constantly see when I'm on a train is people just constantly like that. And I'm like, your neck, you're going to grow up with a limp neck.
Before we run out of time, can we just sort of pay tribute, I guess, to the very sad news, because the coroner's report has now come out about the Friends star, Matthew Perry, and the way he died.
It did feel like we had lost a friend at the end of October when Matthew Perry was found unresponsive in his pool. There was a lot of questions on how he died. Now, the autopsy report has come out and said that he died from acute effects of ketamine, also heart disease, and he was using a medication which treats opioid use disorder. So it's quite sad.
But what I read as well, though, is that the amount of ketamine inside him when he died was 3 times what you would give a patient for a general anaesthetic. So that was a massive amount of ketamine.
He had been using it before when he had gone to rehab, because he was saying, he talks about it in his memoir, because he was saying it helped him with pain, it helped him with depression. So I think he was using it in small amounts, but then obviously it kind of picked up a bit more before he died.
And, of course, on the night he died, he'd actually just sent an Instagram photo, hadn't he? Which appeared to be a very happy photo.
I think that was actually I think that was a couple of nights before, yes.
Where he was sitting in the same hot tub, looking out at this amazing view he had from his pool. And it just seems so sad that that's where he ended his life.
And, you know, more than anything, he didn't want to be remembered just for, you know, his battle against addiction. He also did help others in that sense. He created a safe house, and he was, like, quite open about it in his memoir. So I think it's quite sad that he went that way.
But he has helped so many people by being so open about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think what's sad is that, like you said, Steph, ketamine was actually medically administered a few weeks before to help with depression, because it does help with very residual depression. And then he probably just got some himself, and that's what you imagine. He probably just overdid it. The only blessing is that he wouldn't have known that he was dying.
OK, it's a sad note to end on, but it's important to pay tribute to him, because lovely man, lovely man. We'll be back with you after the weather.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, I'm Alex Deakin. This is your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. It's going to be a cloudy but mild weekend. Most of us will be dry, but where it rains, it's going to rain hard. In northwest Scotland, it's going to turn very soggy. Already a bit damp here, but the rain's going to get heavier and more persistent through the rest of the day, and it will still be blustery. Quite breezy elsewhere, but bar a bit of drizzle at times over the hills of Wales and northwest England, most places will stay dry, but don't expect much blue sky. It's just grey, but mild. Temperatures in double figures, 12, maybe even 13 in one or two places. It'll be a mild night as well, but it's going to be a very wet night in northwest Scotland. So we have weather warnings in place here, an amber warning covering parts of the Western Highlands, eastern parts of Skye and northern parts of Argyll and Bute. That rain really building up through the night and indeed tomorrow. Elsewhere again, apart from a bit of drizzly rain at times, mostly in the west, many places will stay dry overnight, and that cloud acting like a blanket to keep the temperatures up. Another mild start on Sunday. Not much will change, although the rain will start to shift a little further south, but the rain total's really building up, giving the potential for some disruption. Even landslides are possible. We'll see some wet weather edging south across southwest Scotland too into Northern Ireland. Again, some drizzle on the hills of western England and Wales, but many central and eastern parts dry and breezy, but again, pretty mild. Bye for now.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again. Don't forget to get in touch, if you will, please, with pictures of your street, if your street is a particularly well-lit one and very festive. And good morning to Chrissy, who says, today I'm going to be watching you, both so happy to see Pip and Anne on today, and it's my 66th birthday. Finally get my state pension and my freedom pass. I watch GB News every day and I love it, and I don't feel alone anymore. Yeah, no, and you won't feel alone because you'll be able to whiz around on the buses. We'll be back in just a couple of moments.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. This Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show, every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m.
We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. It's 7 o'clock on Saturday, the 16th of December. Today, well, he really is trying everything. Today, Rishi Sunak goes to Italy to meet their radical right-wing Prime Minister in a desperate attempt, well, to save his premiership and stop the boats. But will it achieve anything?
A body has been found in the search for missing mother of three, Gaynor Lord. She was last seen after she left work early in Norwich 8 days ago. Local police say there is a high probability that she had entered the water.
Fines for parents who take their children out of school for term-time holidays have spiked after the shift in attitudes from the pandemic disruption to teaching. Today we're debating, should you be fined for taking your kids out of school for a quick getaway? And Aiden's got your sport.
Yes, indeed. Good morning. Manchester United boss Erik ten Hag said he doesn't fear the sack ahead of tomorrow's trip to Liverpool. We'll be looking ahead to that match and the rest of the weekend's action.
Plus, Alex has that all-important weather forecast.
Cloudy, mild and breezy sums up the weather this weekend. For most of us, it will be dry, but where it rains in northwest Scotland, it's going to rain hard. There are Met Office warnings in place. Join me later for a full forecast.
And don't forget, you can join in any of our discussions this morning by emailing, as usual, gbviews@gbnews.com, or you can tweet us at gbnews. This morning you're watching GB Breakfast News, or GB News Breakfast, is it, or whatever it's called, Breakfast, this morning with Alan Pip. Yes, it's lovely to be with you this morning, actually, even if it is a bit cold out there. It's noticeably getting drier and colder. It's almost like snow weather, I
But
feel.
isn't it lovely when it's so cold, but then you see all the gorgeous Christmas lights?
Yes.
And we've been asking you to send in your pictures of your Christmas lights because we're looking for the UK's most Christmassy street. Well, Fred and Sharon in Wallasey sent this in. Let's have a look. Ooh,
oh, my goodness.
Stunning.
You should be so proud of your street. That's absolutely fab. If you're listening on the radio, sorry you can't see it, but it's a proper snow. Is that snow? I think it is snow.
See, that, Anne, could be the front of a Christmas card.
Yes, it could, and a good one. And they've got lights that go from one end of the street to the opposite side, all the way down the road. That is really pretty. You should be really proud.
And Chris, good morning. You say, I do not have a fancy street photo, but my Rocky the Maligator is ready for the festive period.
It's
love a
black
dog
lab
photo.
with a beautiful Santa hat on. Yeah, that's one way to keep warm. Keep those photographs coming in. We've got to cheer ourselves up, haven't we? And it's lovely to know how you're spending the next few days in this race up to Christmas. Mind you, not so lovely for the Prime Minister at the moment, because is he ever going to get a day off? Well, he's in Rome today for a meeting with Italy's radical right Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni, with the pair expected to discuss their shared perspectives on illegal immigration.
Rishi Sunak will also be attending a right-wing conference organised by the ruling party. That's the Brothers of Italy, and its guest list includes the Albanian Prime Minister and Elon Musk.
Extraordinary. Let's find out more about what's going on there with GB News' political correspondent, Catherine Forster, who joins us now. So he's not taking a Saturday off even before Christmas. Is this sort of, I don't know, what's he doing? It just feels desperate.
He's going to have a happier time, I would predict, in Italy than he has been having at home, because he's had a pretty terrible week, hasn't he? The Conservative, various different groups fighting very publicly amongst themselves. OK, they've got the vote, they carried it, but there's going to be big trouble with that in the new year. Lots of competing views on how we get round this huge problem of not being able to send migrants to Rwanda. So he's in Italy today with the Italian PM, Giorgia Meloni. He gets on very well with her. They came in last October. They're a similar age. They've both got young daughters, and they've got this shared common problem as to what to do about illegal migration. The Albanian Prime Minister will also be there. They're meeting at a fortress near the Vatican. And they're meeting, the three of them. Elon Musk
Sounds ominous,
they're also going to the event, but they're going to be talking about how to crack down on illegal migration and particularly the role of organised crime.
What's her view meant to be then? Because it's a big problem in Italy.
It's a huge problem. I mean, we think we've got problems here, and we have. The government would say the numbers are down. 29,000 crossed the channel illegally, as against 46,000 last year. In Italy, it's much, much worse. This year, 130,000 people have crossed into Italy illegally. That's double the number the previous year. A couple of months ago, back in September, in Sicily, they had this awful situation. Hundreds of African migrants basically broke out of a detention centre in Sicily. It was supposed to be housing 250 people. It was housing 2,000. And then they're going around looking for food. Of course, they've got nothing.
And do they arrive in small boats?
They arrive in, but a
Med?
lot of them coming from Africa, from places like Libya, from Tunisia. The people smuggling gangs making very large sums of money.
So she's got a similar problem as far as boats are concerned.
She's got
people smuggling.
She really has, and also she's also been blocked by the courts in a sort of similar parallel to what's happening with Rwanda. Italy did a deal, it was announced last month, with Albania. So the idea was people coming illegally to Italy would be then sent off to Albania. They would be processed there. That was going to go ahead, and that's now been blocked by an Albanian court because they're worried, basically, it was going to happen on their land. They're worried about their sort of jurisdiction, some of it effectively being, you know, policed by the Italians. So that's now been blocked. It's going to be reviewed in January. So Italy having really very similar and actually much worse problems than we are. And of course, numbers crossing the Mediterranean are up dramatically this year. And the World Bank, this very worrying forecast that by 2050 there's going to be over 200 million people on the move globally.
200
largely
million.
Because of climate change, having to leave their homes. And of course, millions and millions will head north, won't they, to Europe and elsewhere.
I imagine this trip, this flying visit, will go down very well with the Tory factions?
Well, I don't know, to be honest. I mean, it really depends on if anything comes out of it, and we'll see, because there's many people in the Conservative Party, particularly on the right, that are so fed up with the government saying they're going to stop the boats. We've got a year till the next election, possibly slightly more. But OK, the numbers are down, but they are still crossing. We had a tragedy in the last week, didn't we? A boat sank off the French coast. A woman died. There's others in critical condition. So the government are saying, look, we're trying, we're doing this, we're doing that, we're doing the other. But the thing is that Rwanda, which the government would say is only one of the many ways that they're trying to crack this, has become such a sort of totemic issue that they really need to get flights going before the next election. And the thinking is, if they can get that, if people really believe if you cross, you're going to Rwanda and you're not coming back here, that will very quickly reduce the crossings. But we have to get to that point, don't we? And
but
it's
most
not at all clear.
commentators, seem to all be agreeing it's just never going to happen.
Well, I mean, it was through the courts, then it was blocked by the European Court, and even if and when it gets through the Commons and then the House of Lords, where the government does not have a majority, will amend it and meddle with it. Even if it gets right the way through Parliament, there's no guarantee that the courts will not intervene again. So, yeah, I wouldn't hold your breath to see people going to Rwanda.
He's going to have a very tenuous Christmas, isn't he, Rishi Sunak?
He was talking to children the other day. They said, what do you want for Christmas? And he said, I'd like a day off.
Yeah. I wonder if he'd even get Christmas Day off at the moment, given all of the problems on his plate, let alone the turkey. Great. Anyway, thank you, Catherine, for the moment, indeed. It's 7:08. Now, police say there's no evidence of third-party involvement after finding a body in the hunt for the missing Norwich mother, Gaynor Lord.
Specialist diving teams retrieved the body from the River Wensum in the city yesterday, a week after the 55-year-old went missing.
Norfolk police say the identity of the body hasn't been confirmed, but Gaynor Lord's family have been informed.
Joining us now is Charlie Hedges, a missing persons expert. Good morning to you, Charlie. Obviously, the result that nobody wanted here. But just talk us through, it was a week before this body was found. It's a very, very difficult search, isn't it, of a river?
Absolutely, yes. It's probably the most difficult environment in which to search. There's nil visibility, we're in really cold conditions, and there's moving water with the amount of rain there's been recently that's moving at pace, so that will move things around. There's a lot of debris in the water. Incredibly difficult, so I don't think it's an unreasonable length of time to have taken to have found this body.
Been convinced almost from day one that she had entered the river. I wonder why they would have been so convinced of that.
Well, the location that she was last seen, the clothing that was found close to the water, it made it the primary search area, which had to be either found to be the right place or eliminated. And with any search, the sooner you start, the better it is. So, I mean, Norfolk Police did quite rightly say that they were open to other ideas. Their investigation was looking at other avenues. Obviously, with the search, that's a very high-profile activity. The other activities, searching the CCTV, looking for witnesses, searching for other clues, is much less of a more of a low-profile activity and doesn't attract so much attention. So everyone focuses on the search.
Charlie, police say that the force remains open-minded about the circumstances of Gaynor's disappearance, and this is still a missing person investigation. Do you think there will be more clarity in the days ahead, and will it be made public?
Well, it's difficult to tell what information may or may not be out there. I mean, clearly, it is important to keep an open mind. Everyone focuses on the main hypothesis of having gone into water, but how did she get there? What are the circumstances surrounding it? So they will be working very hard to understand Gaynor and her circumstances and her background, looking for any information which can point them towards the reason why she went in the water. Was it voluntary? They say they've ruled out third parties, but clearly they would like to know as much as possible, and I'm sure that that information will be put into the public domain at an appropriate time.
And that's interesting too, isn't it? Because this case appears to have been followed in a very different way from the last, sadly, the last missing mum, and that was Nicola Bulley, when the press were almost given too much information, and also then social media started to load in on their various theories, and it all became hugely distasteful. In this case, Norwich Police seem to have kept a lid on it, haven't they?
Yes. Was it the police keeping the lid on it, or was it the profile of the case that attracted a different level of attention? These things are very complex and nuanced. Every case is different. I think it's wrong to make comparisons on a case-by-case basis, although there are obvious similarities between the two cases. But the circumstances, the terrain, and a lot of the information was different. And where Gaynor went missing, there was opportunity to look at a lot more CCTV, a lot more witnesses, whereas the Lancashire location was much more remote and harder to find immediate information like that. So they're different, and both have been resolved, and I wouldn't like to make a sort of comparison between the two cases.
I think police in Norwich did consult their counterparts in the northwest. Does that suggest then that there are lessons that could have been learnt from what happened with Nicola Bulley's disappearance here?
Lessons can be learnt from every single case. Everything is different. We're constantly learning and developing, and there should always be an open mind to learning from previous experience. And always police forces link together in these ways to look at cases, to look at what went right, what went wrong, what can be done better. That's a constantly evolving process.
While we have you, can I just ask you about this extraordinary case of the young missing boy, Alex Batty, who has turned up 5 years later, wandering around trying to find his way home to Oldham. And it was just extraordinary that, I mean, Interpol have been looking for him. His Greater Manchester Police started to look for him. What do you make of the fact that he could go missing for 5 years and then he wasn't actually found? He gave himself in France and he hadn't gone missing at all. He'd sort of been off with his mother.
Well, yes, it is a very interesting case and fascinating. There aren't many that happen like this, although there are some that have been missing for much, much longer than turn up. It would, not knowing the circumstances in intimate detail, it's hard to say, but it does look rather like an international parental abduction case, because the custody was with the grandmother. She had the lawful custody, and it seems that he was taken by his mother and grandfather, or retained out of the country, which is a slightly separate offence. And what's unusual is that he's been, from that young age, with them for so long and suddenly decided, I don't want to be here anymore, I want to make my own life, which is brilliant. And it smacks of him being in a much more capable position of dealing with it, whereas some children in these situations, and they're not that uncommon, become so brainwashed by the other parent that they don't really know what to do and don't understand what alternatives there are.
Extraordinary. And it's, as you say, very unusual nowadays to sort of hear a missing person's story come out with sort of happy ending, but he has already spoken to his grandmother and I think is on his way home. Lovely to talk to you. Thank you so much, Charlie.
OK, thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Yeah, it's an extraordinary story, that one. It'll be a long time before we know the details.
Yes, we might be seeing a film of it in the next few years.
Yes, just sort of, I'll bet. Yeah. 16 minutes past 7. Let's have a quick look at some other stories making headlines this morning.
The death of Friends star Matthew Perry has been ruled an accident from the acute effects of ketamine. The toxicology report also added drowning and heart disease as contributing factors. The report stated that Matthew Perry was receiving ketamine infusion therapy for depression and anxiety. The actor had been open about his struggles with addiction and sobriety and also set up a sober living facility for men with similar issues.
Piers Morgan has accused the Duke of Sussex of wanting to destroy the British monarchy. The former tabloid editor made the claims following Harry's partial victory in a High Court phone hacking claim. Morgan said he had zero knowledge of the practice.
Irish Premier Leo Varadkar has said there is a very clear majority, but not unanimity in the EU for a ceasefire in Gaza, a day after saying the bloc had lost credibility on the issue.
And Harry and Meghan have chosen not to include a picture of their children on their annual Christmas card. Instead, they chose a photo from the closing ceremony of this year's Invictus Games. Do keep those photographs coming in, please, of your lovely street, if you live particularly in a beautifully lit street this Christmas, or of your house, if you go to a lot of trouble lighting your house. And like Harry and Meghan, if you send out a sort of family-ish Christmas card, well, unlike Harry and Meghan, actually, love to see what your personal Christmas card is like.
I do like the family Christmas cards when there's young children, you get to see them grow every year.
Yes, that's lovely.
But I do also love a Christmas robin, I have to say.
I know, yes, it's
or
lovely.
A penguin, or
nice
a snowman.
On the mantelpiece, yeah. and that's the other thing, is do you bother sending Christmas cards anymore?
Well, not with the cost of stamps these days.
And the cost of the card as well. It is very expensive. Are you going to be one of those people who just resorts to WhatsApp or something like that? To say,
yep.
I think so too, yeah. Shall we find out if the weather is looking Christmassy? Here's Alex.
Good morning, I'm Alex Deakin. This is your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. It's going to be a cloudy but mild weekend. Most of us will be dry, but where it rains, it's going to rain hard. In northwest Scotland, it's going to turn very soggy. Already a bit damp here, but the rain's going to get heavier and more persistent through the rest of the day, and it will still be blustery. Quite breezy elsewhere, but bar a bit of drizzle at times over the hills of Wales and northwest England. Most places will stay dry, but don't expect much blue sky. It's just grey, but mild. Temperatures in double figures, 12, maybe even 13 in one or two places. It'll be a mild night as well, but it's going to be a very wet night in northwest Scotland. So we have weather warnings in place here, an amber warning covering parts of the Western Highlands, eastern parts of Skye and northern parts of Argyll and Bute. That rain really building up through the night and indeed tomorrow. Elsewhere again, apart from a bit of drizzly rain at times, mostly in the west, many places will stay dry overnight, and that cloud acting like a blanket to keep the temperatures up. Another mild start on Sunday. Not much will change, although the rain will start to shift a little further south, but the rain total's really building up, giving the potential for some disruption. Even landslides are possible. We'll see some wet weather edging south across southwest Scotland too into Northern Ireland. Again, some drizzle on the hills of western England and Wales, but many central and eastern parts dry and breezy, but again, pretty mild. Bye for now.
Dry and breezy and jolly cold, but any snow so far? Right, next we're going to be asking, is it right to fine parents who take their children out of school for term time holidays? Get in touch, let us know what you think. GB Views, gbnews.com. Do stay with us.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Oh!
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello again, it's 7:23. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Anne and Pip.
The latest figures show fines for parents, are you one of them, who take their children out of school for term time holidays have jumped by a quarter since the pandemic.
Yes, this has also caused concerns about a breakdown in relations between schools and parents, which has been affected, of course, by the prolonged school closures during the pandemic.
So, this morning, we want to know, should parents be fined for taking kids on term time holidays?
Let's talk to Chairman of the Campaign for Real Education, Chris McGovern. A very good morning to you, Chris. Hi there. As a parent, have you ever taken children out of school during term time?
No, I never did that. Since I was a teacher and a head teacher, it would set a bad example, so I never did that. And I have some sympathy for parents, but remember, we have to ask the question, what's more important, a passport to the future or a passport to Mallorca? And my view is that it should be a passport to the future. And that means education, children should be in school. But I understand parents' point of view too, and it's difficult. I mean, I was a head teacher and I taught for 35 years. Schools are very much like families. You need to get on with each other. When you start fining parents, it's a confrontation, it breaks down relationships. It should be very much a last resort. There are some parents who are quite feckless and selfish, pull their children out. But I don't like fining parents. I think it's a last resort. I'd rather that schools put in their prospectus that this is a school where you can go on holiday, come and go as you want, or you have to be in school. And then maybe parents will say, well, I'll choose a school where you can go on holiday, but it won't be much of a school, I'm afraid. So broadly speaking, I'm with the government, but I don't like the idea of fining parents. It has to be very much a last resort.
I also speak as the daughter of teachers, Chris, but I have to say, is there not a difference between taking a child out of, say, primary school and taking them out of year 10 when they're studying for GCSEs? If you take them out when it's at primary school, going on holiday to, I don't know, somewhere very historical like, I don't know, Italy or Rome, you could say, well, that's actually educational for them.
Well, I would personally say, and I said it to my parents, because I finished my career in the primary sector, the primary schools are far more important than the secondary schools, getting the foundations right. So if you're a 5-year-old, you're learning to read, you're learning the sounds of letters. You can't really take 2 weeks out. So my view is that it's actually more important to be in primary school than secondary school. We need to not worry so much about 14, 16, 17-year-olds. Focus on the 3-year-olds and the 4-year-olds. They're really important. So I don't think it's, it is true you can have education by going to visit Rome or Pompeii or somewhere like that. But from the teacher's point of view, if children are coming and going, it's very difficult to organise the lessons. And remember, children from really poor backgrounds aren't going to have any holiday at all, and their lessons are going to be disrupted. If we talk to teachers, it's quite hard if children are coming and going. So I think it's for the parents, not for the children. Most children want to be with their friends most of the time, But, they want a holiday too, and it's difficult sometimes. But ultimately, schools need to make it clear, if you come to this school, you don't have term time holidays. And if there are schools who think differently, they could say so. Now, look, I will also put the point of view of parents who talk to us. They would say, Chris, it doesn't matter whether they're in school or not. They're still not learning anything. And you know what? When we closed the schools down during COVID, we got the best results in history. So there are two sides to this argument.
Yeah, COVID has some parents, I have no doubt, would use COVID as that sort of defence. They'd say, well, you closed the schools, the kids did very well. So what, I'm just taking them away for a couple of weeks. But there's also the problem, isn't there, of the cost. It is much more expensive to go on a family holiday during term time. During the holidays, isn't it? Suddenly, when all the kids go back to school, holidays become cheaper. It's so unfair.
Yeah, that's a totally logical argument. What I would say, and I've travelled around the world a fair bit, if you go to poorer countries, India's a place I know reasonably well, but large parts of Africa too, children are desperate to go to school. If you go to Afghanistan today, girls in particular are desperate to go to school. In this country, sometimes children, they're bunking off. They're not going to school or they're going on holiday. It's a different attitude, isn't it, really? We need to value education more, but we need high-quality education. Children need to be convinced that being in school is worthwhile, and parents need to be convinced about that. I have some sympathy for some parents, because sometimes there are problems in the family. They perhaps need to get away. And head teachers can in fact, grant permission for children to be off school for a holiday, but usually only in very special circumstances. What worries me a little bit is that in different parts of the country, some schools are quite generous about this and some are much harsher about this. Overall, you know, if we had a really good education system and parents valued it, they would send their kids to school. And as I say, around the world, poorer countries in particular are desperate to get their kids into school.
So if you think fines should be a last resort, then how can you deter parents? What is the message that needs to be sent out?
You know, sometimes parents need to be educated themselves and they need to understand how important it is that children are in school. Since retiring as a head teacher, I took over a failing school, very poor children in the school. And, you know, the first thing we had to do was to feed the children, give them a uniform and so forth. So it's just charity work. But, you know, the parents themselves sometimes were great, but sometimes they were uneducated. They hadn't got much time for school. They themselves had a bad experience at school. They couldn't read and write. Sometimes they were fighting at the school gate. They were taking drugs and so forth. Those parents need help. If you help the parents, you're helping the child as well. So in a sense, it's getting a message across to the parents. Look, if you support your child, you need to send them to school. If you go to school, you've got a future, you've got a possibility of a future. At the end of the day, we had those international results out last week. Our country, although we do reasonably well in Europe, Europe's the second division. We might be doing quite well in European terms, but with the second division, we're about 3 to 5 years behind the kids in Singapore, in China and Japan. We've got a mountain to climb educationally. Parents need to understand this. When I speak to children, and I've been speaking in front of television cameras to young children in primary school and debating whether they should do homework, they came round to my point of view pretty quickly when they realised how far they're falling behind other children in Asia. Asia's a success story. We're doing well in Britain relative to perhaps France or Italy, but we're still in the second division. So, you know, school is important. High quality teaching is important. Well-paid teachers all these things are important, but we've got to compete with the rest of the world. Parents need to understand that. It's the country's future. We've got to get it right. So don't fine parents if you don't have to. Don't use it as a threat. Hang together as far as you can. But in the last resort, if you've got feckless parents, maybe a fine is necessary. Look, the fine's £60. It's not massive.
Chris, what about the end of the summer term, though? When everybody's winding down, is it really a big deal to take your kids out a couple of 3 days early so you could get that cheaper flight?
No big deal for the parents, but imagine you're the child. You've got the end of school sports day, you've got end of school plays, you've got the end of school trip. You're all doing things together. Do you want to be with your mates, your friends? Or do you want to go off to Spain or somewhere nice, admittedly? A lot of children actually don't want to be left out. And when they're in Mallorca or wherever they are, Marbella, they are texting their friends, what's going on at school? So it's not always quite as simple as you think that, you know, children want to be on holiday. No, the children want to be with their friends. It's the parents who need the holiday. And actually, there are some parents that do need the holiday. They might be in the NHS, they might be in the armed forces, might be in the police. Perhaps they can only take a holiday at that time of the year. So there are some exceptions, and I think we should show a little bit of flexibility. People in the catering industry, for example, there should be a little bit of flexibility, but it does have an impact on what's going on in the classroom. Children can't just come and go and be taught well. It just doesn't work like that.
I totally agree. I used to look forward to the end of term. It was brilliant. Lovely atmosphere in school. Suddenly teachers became human beings and you could do interesting things.
Non-uniform day.
Yes, that's right. It's lovely to talk to you, Chris. Thank you so much and happy Christmas.
Thank you. Happy Christmas to you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Yeah, I used to like the end of term. You know, people misbehaved in different ways and I don't know, it's just fun.
Yeah, schools were a bit more lax, weren't they? You felt you could get away with a bit more.
Yeah. And there were lots of concerts and everybody got a chance to show off if they could play the clarinet or something. You know, I don't know, it was really good fun. So I liked the end of term and I wouldn't have wanted to miss the end of term.
I don't know. If my parents said they would take me to Disney World, I'd have been quite
yes,
to head off.
Oh, yeah, we used to have some fab holidays there. OK, shall we talk sport, I think? Yes, here's Aiden. Hi.
Hi, how you doing?
Did you like the end of term?
Yeah, I did actually. You're absolutely right. The teachers were a little bit different. I think they were a bit demon-happy, weren't they? And you can get away with a little bit more. I remember the last day of primary school.
It was fun having a French lesson or a maths lesson where you didn't learn French or maths, you just talked.
Yeah, I know.
But that's what I mean. You dossed around.
No,
so
I know,
you could
but
lose
that's
a day.
nice, though.
The last day of primary school, I got a ticking off from my mum because I'd used my shirt to get everyone to sign it You know, because everyone,
That's a
and
good
she said,
idea.
"That's a perfectly good shirt. You could wear that for secondary school." I got I got scolded for that way.
It's a good idea, though.
I know it was a good idea, yeah, but it was a waste of a perfectly good shirt, sadly.
OK, well, should we talk about Manchester United, or is that just too dismal?
Yeah, it's a little bit dismal from their point of view. I mean, the league form hadn't been too bad prior to last week, but then suddenly, what a difference a week makes. I mean, we went over with a fine-tooth comb, didn't we, last weekend about their defeat at home to Bournemouth, which is truly embarrassing because Bournemouth are not a bad side, don't get me wrong, but they'd never won at Old Trafford in their history of over 100 years. And then they followed that up, as expected, with a 1-0 home defeat to Bayern Munich. And then tomorrow, it never rains but it pours. They go to Anfield, they go to Liverpool, where they lost 7-0 last season. Eric Ten Hag, the United manager, says he's not fearing that match and that result. He's not fearing any kind of repeat of last season, but he's bound to say that, isn't he? But he's under pressure, and you have to wonder how many more defeats can they take. They've got new owners going in, taking control of the football side of things. The Ineos Group, Sir James Ratcliffe, of course. So he's going to be in charge of that. And sometimes new owners, and they go into somewhere new and they want to make a change quite quickly. And I don't think too many United fans, given the form of late, will be too sad to see Eric Ten Hag go. He just doesn't seem to me like a Manchester United manager. It's a job that requires a certain kind of personality. Goodness me, you've got to be strong in that dressing room. But it's not just the manager, and the players have been there for years and years and years, and they are underperforming. It's as simple as that.
And Liverpool are flying at the moment. They haven't lost a home game, have they?
They've lost a home. They lost one in the last 49, but that was against Leeds United in the very last minute back in October 2022. But they don't tend to lose a home.
So the money's on a win tomorrow.
Without doubt, without doubt. I mean, I wouldn't. If you're looking to save your skin, then Anfield's one of the last places you want to go right now. And it's a difficult trip for United or for any team. United, it's a local derby. Liverpool will be absolutely desperate to win that game as well, because they're United, the local rivals from 34 miles away down the motorway. And so yeah, it's a difficult time for United, and it's a huge club, and it's difficult to manage at the best of times.
Tell us about Erling Haaland and his injuries. What's he doing about it?
It's funny because you're not the only diamond in red at the moment, because City are playing against Aurora Red Diamonds in the World Club
Aurora
Cup.
Red Diamonds?
Yeah, Japanese side in the semi-final on Tuesday. Now, he's going to miss... He's got a foot injury. It's been troubling him for a couple of weeks. He's going to miss the visit to Crystal Palace today, but they want to get him fit for this trophy because it's the first time City have been involved in it. They really want to win it. So he's going to he's gone to Spain. He's in Spain at the moment, getting treatment, biomechanical treatment for a foot injury by a guy called John Haddad, he's a former jeweller. This is another jewellery. He's a former jeweller in LA, so that's another precious diamond thing. Precious stone reference there.
He's called the Miracle Man, though.
He is, yeah.
How come a former jeweller is going to be able to work some sort of, I don't know, therapeutic thing?
Yeah, he believes us all that the key to injuries is about movement. It's not necessarily about bones. It's about movement, and he's getting that. Haaland's worked with him before, and his injury record is pretty good, I have to say. I should say, actually, this is a little-known fact. In Erling Haaland's contract, if he doesn't feel right, and that doesn't mean he doesn't have to show any kind of ailment on an X-ray or anything, he doesn't feel right, even just in his head, he doesn't have to play.
No way.
Exactly.
Well, you could
Can you imagine that kind of contract? Can you imagine that kind of contract?
Lots of games.
Yeah, he could, but he wouldn't. I mean, they're signing a player of a particular character,
of course. The sort of person he is. I mean, he wants to
score goals. He wants to break records, exactly. But we always, in every sport, in every sort of generation, clubs have extensive medical departments now. There's always one person who offers a particular type of treatment, and as I say, he believes in biomechanics. But yeah, he's a former jeweller in LA, and he's in Spain at the moment giving treatment to Erling Haaland in the hope of having him fit for Tuesday. He flies back on Monday, I believe, from Spain, and they travel to Saudi Arabia the following day to take on the Aurora Red Diamonds, as mentioned.
Should we talk question of sport?
Why not?
Because it's been around for how many years?
53 years, I believe, yeah.
Much loved sports quiz programme for anyone who doesn't know it, and it's always been very famous for having all sorts of mega personalities on it. So what's happened?
Well, you say mega personalities. I mean, it peaked at 19 million viewers back in 1987. That's when the much-loved Emlyn Hughes, that's David Coleman presenting.
David Coleman.
There's Bill Beaumont we can see there, Sam Torrance on the right. And then It's so funny because you see they're the kind of calibre of guests you used to find on it. There's Bill Beaumont there on the right-hand side. He was a famous captain for a number of years.
Very old-fashioned set.
Yeah, I know it is. Yeah, so that's David Cohn. That's a newer, sort of more recent David Cohn. Ali McCoy's there.
Oh, doesn't he look beautiful there?
And John Parrott. So this is the point. Nowadays they have. I mean, Sam Quek and Ugo Monye. I just don't think they're quite famous enough to be on a question of sport. Paddy McGuinness was the presenter, obviously, or he's the presenter. He's the star quality.
Both of them.
Ian Botham there as well. Bill Beaumont as well. More recent picture of him. That looks like the late 80s. But there was a famous one from 1987 when Emlyn Hughes, one of the captains, failed to identify Princess Anne on the picture board. And, excuse me, and he actually he said, I can't remember who said it was, but he said it was a bloke. And so the following week, it caused massive hilarity in the studio. He was falling around, but then the following week, Princess Anne actually turned up in the studio, and that's when they achieved. And she was on Emlyn Hughes' team as well.
And 19 million viewers watched that in 1987.
Imagine the embarrassment. You're sitting next to someone who a week earlier you couldn't even identify the correct gender.
But what a good sport they both were for doing
that. Oh, fantastic! Yeah, 19 million. In contrast, Anne, under 1 million now. It's getting.
I think it's such a. I mean, it's something that I remember watching growing up with my grandparents, and we absolutely loved it. And oh, how we laughed.
But I think it was always on...
To me, they have messed around with it too much.
They have. It's not just the format. I mean, it's kind of banter against quiz. As you mentioned earlier on last hour, you did say that you didn't even have to be a sports personality to get on there anymore. I can understand why they want to kind of refresh it a little bit, but it always used to be on the same day and the same time, didn't it? And it used to be a series, and you knew when it was coming back, and it already mentioned in the TV Times it's the return of a question of sport. But also, I think it's harder to get the guests now because it's been in Manchester on and off over the years, but now it's settled in Media City up in Salford. It's very, very difficult when it's not quite as big as it used to be, so it's not the attraction. I mean, there was a time, Anne, when guests would do it for free, just for the profile. It was bigger than their sport. Yes. But now the agents are looking for big fees to go up to Manchester. It's difficult for footballers especially to get out of their schedule. They were relying, I think, when they went to Media City, that they may get a few Manchester City, Man United players, but even that's proving difficult to do. But as Pip said earlier...
channels.
Without doubt, yeah. I mean, back in 1987, just four channels. Now there's over, 500, 600 that we've got access to. But Pip made a good point as well earlier on that it's the scheduling as well. Yeah. That's difficult. I mean, some people are watching at 1 o'clock in the morning. We always knew when it was on.
OK, my dear, we'll see you a bit later.
Absolutely, I hope so. Absolutely. If you have me.
Yeah. Oh, yes, we'd love to have you back.
We can't cover you this late. I'll see you back on.
You're in. It's 7:40 now. How would you like to win £10,000 cash, brand new tech and shopping vouchers?
Well, you could be the winner of our very first Great British giveaway. Here's all the details of how you can make those prizes yours.
This is your chance to win cash, treats and tech in our very first Great British giveaway. There's a totally tax-free £10,000 cash up for grabs. Cash which would help make 2024 a whole lot better. We're also going to send you shopping with £500 worth of vouchers to spend in the store of your choice. What would be on your shopping list? If it's a new iPhone, we've also got that covered too, with the latest iPhone 15 Pro Max, which you'll also receive. For another chance to win the iPhone, the vouchers and £10,000 cash. Text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB01 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday the 5th of January. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Good luck.
Coming up, it's not a white Christmas in Germany. Not if eco-protesters have got anything to do with it. Oh, look.
That's disgusting.
Ruining a Christmas tree. We'll be discussing this and more in Headline Makers next on Breakfast.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion,
Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this? It's my new teeth.
It's your new teeth. I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. The Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's exactly 7:45. Welcome back. You're watching and listening to Breakfast this morning with Anne and Pip. Shall we have a look at the papers now? With us is Stephanie Tecchi, our Showbiz reporter, and Nikki Hodgson, author and commentator, and they've been delving through. Nikki, tell us about Sadiq Khan, because this is something I don't understand at all.
Right, so Sadiq Khan is in trouble again. Remember the whole ULEZ escapade, where basically he said if you've got a car that runs on a certain diesel, you've got to get rid of it. Well, he's gone one further, and the mayor of Kiev, Vitaly Klitschko, wrote to him and said, you know all those cars that you've got to get rid of, could you donate them to Ukraine? Because we're desperately in need of vehicles, especially 4x4s, which we can repaint, we can fit with, rocket compartments and all this kind of stuff. We just need help, basically. And Mr. Khan has said no. And the reason he said no is because he says there's some kind of weird legal thing that won't allow him to do that.
Oh, surely there's a way around that. I mean, there's a very good reason for Ukraine needing these cars.
Absolutely. And the thing is, these cars belong to individual people. It's their decision where the cars go.
They should have the power.
I actually think somebody should just set up a charity and say, give us your cars, we'll send them over.
We'll do
just
it,
ignore what he's saying.
Because is there some politics underlying this? I mean, is Sadiq Khan not in favour of supporting Ukraine?
It doesn't make any sense if you think about him being, left-leaning liberal. I mean, surely he should be wanting to end the war in Ukraine. Doesn't everybody want to end the war in Ukraine for the sake of Europe and the world?
And the thing is, what are these cars going to do? They're just going to sit in a scrapyard and that's it.
Yes, I mean, apparently you get £2,000 if they're scrapped. So it would be up to the individual. But, I mean, I don't know. I bet there's lots of people that would be happy to give their cars to Ukraine.
I don't understand why he.
I think it's a really, really odd story, and it's just again an example of him being so out of touch with the public about what they actually want to do.
It's a very odd one for
I've really
him.
gone off him over the past few years.
Stephanie, let us pull apart the Harry and Meghan Christmas card.
You know, Christmas cards, I think they say a lot about your personality. And I think with Harry and Meghan's Christmas card, it's business, basically, because they haven't included Archie or Lilibet, even though Christmas is about family and they very much have to be a united family with all the controversy they've gone through this year. But they've chosen to use an image from the closing ceremony of the Invictus Games. They've kept it very brief. And this is a stark contrast to William and Kate's card, which came out last week, where it was black and white. It featured all of the children. So I think Harry and Meghan are planning big business for their Archwell Foundation.
I don't like either of them.
Don't you?
As I was saying earlier, I like cards to have a nice Christmassy theme, and there is nothing Christmassy about either of those.
No, I know. If we take can we take the strap out, Mr. Director, and have another look at Will's and Kate's card? Because there's a little bit of controversy about the fact that one of Louis's fingers seems to be incredibly short. He's obviously got it tucked behind the chair or something, but it looks very weird. And also, William's lost one of his legs, and so it appears has Kate, because you see the chair on which little Charlotte is sitting. There should be legs there behind. I mean, William's leg should and foot
Are you
should be
suggesting this has
behind.
been photoshopped?
Yeah. Well, no, I'm not, but apparently a lot of people have been writing on social media about saying this is very weird. Obviously, the space under the chair might have looked too busy with, I don't know, and it's been photoshopped in some way where William's lost a foot or a leg, and so has Kate.
It's really strange. Also, it would have been nice if Kate had taken a nice selfie of them all with one of her cameras set up. It's just not very
natural, is it?
Yeah, it's just a bit too forced. I mean, and the other picture is obviously, I mean, in my eyes, a Christmas card from a desperate couple who need to drum up business because they're going broke. That's what it seems like. They've got no work in the pipeline.
There's nothing family about that, or festive, or
and it's just
even something
self-celebratory. It's like it's a bit smug.
Yeah,
I don't like it at all.
So I think in 2024 they probably Meghan's alluded recently that they do have a lot of business deals coming up for next year. So I think they need to. They've been losing a lot. Their foundation's lost a lot of money.
Is it the Hollywood Reporter, or what I think that's has pointed out that they are amongst the top 100 losers or something in America?
I felt that was a bit raw.
But Meghan's been very quiet, hasn't she, this year? So I suspect she's a clever woman. There's a lot going on behind the scenes.
She's going to launch
her blog next year.
She's going to launch her Goop-style blog, so where she'll be giving us all lifestyle tips.
Oh, how lovely.
Exactly.
OK, Nikki, you've been in Doncaster recently.
Yes, I have.
Tell us why Doncaster is full.
Well, this is quite controversial. So I'm from Wakefield. Doncaster is very near, South Yorkshire. And when I was a kid, we called it Donny, and it was considered a bit rough, I'll be honest. That's how we thought of it. But I actually went to Doncaster the other week, and it's beautiful. It's thriving. It's got a gorgeous minster, an incredible shopping centre, the best TK Maxx in Britain, honestly.
Oh, we love a TK Maxx.
Yes, I love it. I have everything in there. Me and my friend went to the Slug and Lettuce for lunch. It was beautiful. The service was good. And my friend lives in a place called Hooton Pagnell, which is a kind of posh village next to it. We call it Snooton Pagnell because it's kind of got like a private house that Ellie Goulding got married in. Anyway, this is the backstory to the fact that the Don Valley MP, Nick Fletcher, who is a Conservative, has gone on some lengthy tirades about immigration in Doncaster and has just basically said Doncaster is full in the House of Commons. Now, actually, Doncaster isn't that full. I mean, 94.7% of the population are white, and they're only about 10% of people were born in another country. So actually, if you look at those statistics compared to a lot of different towns, it's not heaving with immigrants.
I mean, did you feel like you were stepping on people when you were there?
Not at all. It was quiet as when I was there, actually.
So he's sort of whipping up a frenzy.
He's kind of whipping up a frenzy. You know, there's lots of Romanian and Polish people who have been there for long time now, 10 years. Their kids are in schools. What the problem is that, you know, Doncaster was a mining town, and once the mines closed, nobody invested in it. And they've just announced some levelling up money for it, but it's absolutely tiny. I mean, in the past 10 years, it's lost the equivalent of £109 million in funding.
Well, you sold it very well to us.
I know. Well, I'm a fan now of Doncaster.
But sadly, we have to go to a Christmas tree that's been spoiled. By whom?
The Last Generation. So they are a sister of Just Stop Oil, and they've been funded by the Climate Emergency Fund. We should have a video of them spraying several different Christmas trees in Germany, and they've targeted over 7 cities, including Munich.
So
and Berlin.
Proper Christmas trees in the town square or whatever, and they've chosen to do this.
Spray painted it
If you're listening on the
orange.
radio, they're spraying a beautiful big tree in what looks like a shopping mall. They're just spraying it with orange paint.
And they've said...
And that's a rotten thing to do.
And they put on Twitter, we're racing full speed towards catastrophe and our governments are failing miserably to pull the emergency brake in Dubai. We can say 2023 has just been... These protesters have just wrecked a lot of things this year, and they're showing no signs of slowing down. And I just, with all these kind of stunts, I think to myself, what are you guys trying to prove here? Because you're not actually making any changes.
I don't know. I tell you what, rather than end on that note, which is a dismal, horrible anti-Christmas note, we've just got about a minute to show everybody this viral video from Kim Kardashian. What's that about, Nikki?
Well, she loves Christmas and she loves to go so OTT at Christmas. And as you will see from this video, her daughter North's bedroom is something else.
This is her daughter's bedroom. Oh,
this is the this is her actual house. This is the entry.
Oh,
there's North singing and dancing.
This is what you call ostentatious.
I mean, it is over the top.
Oh, yeah, but wouldn't you love to do it?
love it.
If you've got that much money, though, I don't know if you'll see her bedroom, but basically in her bedroom, she's got 6 Christmas trees. One of them is pink with little handbags on.
Of course.
I love
She's
it.
got a sign saying North Pole above her bed, which is actually quite cute. But, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's all the money in the world. And you know that Kim Kardashian, in the mornings in
let's
December...
follow her. Oh, no, we can't follow her into her bedroom.
In the mornings of December, she employs a pianist to play Christmas tunes from about 5 a.m. so that the whole household wakes up.
Do you know, I would do that.
Yeah, I probably would. I probably would.
Here, I think we can't hate on them because I think if we all had the money,
We'll
we would do the same.
see you on the other side of the weather.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, I'm Alex Deakin. This is your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. It's going to be a cloudy but mild weekend. Most of us will be dry, but where it rains, it's going to rain hard. In northwest Scotland, it's going to turn very soggy. Already a bit damp here, but the rain's going to get heavier and more persistent through the rest of the day, and it will still be blustery. Quite breezy elsewhere, but bar a bit of drizzle at times over the hills of Wales and northwest England, most places will stay dry, but don't expect much blue sky. It's just grey, but mild. Temperatures in double figures, 12, maybe even 13 in 1 or 2 places. It'll be a mild night as well, but it's going to be a very wet night in northwest Scotland. So we have weather warnings in place here, an amber warning covering parts of the Western Highlands, eastern parts of Skye and northern parts of Argyll and Bute. That rain really building up through the night and indeed tomorrow. Elsewhere again, apart from a bit of drizzly rain at times, mostly in the west, many places will stay dry overnight, and that cloud acting like a blanket to keep the temperatures up. Another mild start on Sunday. Not much will change, although the rain will start to shift a little further south, but the rain total is really building up, giving the potential for some disruption. Even landslides are possible. We'll see some wet weather edging south across southwest Scotland too into Northern Ireland. Again, some drizzle on the hills of western England and Wales, but many central and eastern parts dry and breezy, but again, pretty mild. Bye for now.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Oh!
No, thank you. My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News.
Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels
we're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Turkey cooking is not rocket
He really
science.
is trying everything. Today, Rishi Sunak goes to Italy to meet their radical right-wing Prime Minister in a desperate attempt to save his premiership and stop the boats. But will it achieve anything?
A body's been found in the search for missing mother of three, Gaynor Lord. She was last seen after she left work early in Norwich 8 days ago. Police say there is a high probability that she had entered the water.
In Britain's biggest stories, we'll be looking back at the ongoing disaster over the government's Rwanda plan and speaking to a man who says he has simple steps to solve the illegal migration crisis.
Aiden McGee's.
Yeah, I was
I'm
going to say a very
sorry.
good morning to you.
I'm getting a bit ahead of myself.
Well, no, I think I might be getting behind myself. But it's 1 minute past 8 and you're watching Breakfast here on GB News. Lovely to be with you.
And it's not just us here. Aiden McGee is also here with your sport.
Yes, indeed. In the Premier League, we'll be looking ahead to history being made next week when a female referee takes charge of a Premier League game for the first time. We'll have a very special guest reflecting on that.
And Alex has your weather.
Cloudy, mild and breezy sums up the weather this weekend. For most of us, it will be dry, but where it rains in northwest Scotland, it's going to rain hard, and there are Met Office warnings in place. Join me later for a full forecast.
And you can join in any of our discussions this morning by emailing gbviews at gbnews.com or tweet us at gbnews. Stephen's still not very well this morning, so Pip has gladly stepped into his shoes. They're a bit large, but She stepped into
I'm
the
not as
nevertheless.
glamorous, but I'm here.
Nowhere near as glamorous. Oh, dear. Now, we've been asking you to send in your pictures because we're looking for anything that shows us the lovely Christmas spirit. And Gail says, my 86-year-old mother-in-law, Doreen, is truly getting into the Christmas spirit.
Oh, that is Doreen?
Well, I think it must be.
How lovely.
Oh, well done, you.
How lovely.
That's putting on the Ritz. That's brilliant.
Sally, good morning to you. This is Monty, your little doggy in his reindeer outfit for Christmas.
That looks nice and warm. I have to get my
cutesy wootsy Monty.
My little Ellie one like that, although it looks as though you can't see out.
Yeah, hopefully she doesn't wear that all day.
Mark says, my little tree I've planted with lights here in Bedfordshire. I like that. That's simple and gorgeous, isn't it?
Not like Kim Kardashian.
No, although I liked that as well.
Jeff, good morning. You say this is Portmaddock in North Wales.
That's very nice.
Glorious, yeah.
Is that just your house, or is that neighbours as well? That's really lovely. The Santa's a bit OTT, but I like the rest of it.
And what's so lovely is when people do this, is that they raise money for charity as well.
They often do.
Yeah.
No, I like that. I mean, I know it's a sort of tradition we inherited from America, where first time I ever went to Canada to visit my family was for my 18th birthday. I had family out there in Canada. And when they drove me from the airport to their house, it was a long drive, I saw all these lit-up houses. And I thought, that's a lot of cafes. Because it looked, in Britain, then, only places like restaurants and cafes had lots and lots of lights and Christmas trees outside. I'd never before seen quite such an enormous display in ordinary people's houses. It was quite a revelation, but everybody's doing it now.
Joyous.
Anyway, keep those coming in, please. Pictures, we love to see them. Tell us where you are and how you're going to spend Christmas. gbviews@gbnews.com. Now, the Prime Minister is in Rome today for a meeting with Italy's radical right Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni, with the pair expected to discuss their shared perspectives on illegal immigration.
Rishi Sunak will also be attending a right-wing conference organised by the ruling party, the Brothers of Italy. Its guest list includes the Albanian Prime Minister and Elon Musk.
I'm sure he's got an answer to everything. Let's find out more from GB News' political correspondent, Catherine Forster. Morning. Yeah, is Elon Musk going to be at this meeting then, with them?
He will be at this right-wing festival, which has basically been organised by Giorgia Meloni's party, the Brothers of Italy. And Rishi Sunak is going, he's basically returning a favour because when he had his AI conference a couple of months ago, Giorgia Meloni was the only G7 leader to show up. So he's going for this. But they do have a lot in common, these two. Not only did they both come in about a year ago, they're a similar age, they both got daughters, but they've both got this really huge shared challenge of illegal migration. I mean, we talk constantly, don't we, about the government's failure to stop the boats. I mean, 29,000 this year. OK, that's down a third, but still. But really, it's nothing compared to what is going on in Italy. They've had 130,000 this year. That's double what it was last year. And in places like the Italian island of Lampedusa, in September, they had 11,000 people arrive illegally just in 5 days in September. So remember when Suella Braverman referred to people coming as an invasion, got a lot of criticism. But locals in places like Lampedusa and Sicily are using that term, and you can understand with these numbers why. So very difficult for Italy. They've also had a plan to outsource the people coming in, like we were still trying to send to Rwanda. They want to send them to Albania. They had a deal agreed. That was blocked last week by an Albanian court. So they really do have a lot in common, these two.
And they're also going to be looking at ways to tackle organised crime, which is linked to the whole issue of illegal migration as well.
Yes, that's right. So they will be having a meeting, just the two of them. Then they will also be having a meeting with the Albanian Prime Minister as well, and really looking at how to crack down on organised crime, which of course is behind these numbers because there's huge numbers coming from North Africa, from Libya, from Tunisia, across the Mediterranean, facilitated by organised crime gangs making a lot of money. So looking at how to stop that sort of upstream, if you like. But it is a massive challenge, and one that looks like it's going to get even bigger. The numbers might be down a bit across the Channel. I mean, we had deaths just in the last week, but in the Mediterranean, the numbers are up very considerably this year.
And again, it's people smuggling. It's the same sort of boats, is it?
Exactly. And basically, some of them, of course, are coming genuine asylum seekers from war, from persecution, and lots of others are coming for, you know, they're economic migrants wanting a better life. And we have a very poor record of sending people back.
No, not half.
You know, most people that come end up staying. But I mean, to give you an example, Germany, they've got, I think, 400,000 people applying for asylum this year. Huge, huge numbers. But they do send much more of them back. They do reject far more of the claims than we do. So
one of our viewers, Chris, says the small boats and Rwanda are a complete distraction. The biggest issue and threat to our civil society is the scale of legal migration. Does Italy have that sort of problem too?
No, I mean, the Italian population is declining. People, and happening here as well, people are not having enough babies. And so the rate of, you know, the Italian population replacing itself is going down. But I agree that we talk so much, don't we, about stopping the boats. The numbers, 29,000, are tiny compared to legal migration, which in the last year was nearly 750,000. And this is a Conservative government, came in 2010, saying they'd get it down to the tens of thousands. Boris Johnson, 2019, said they'd get it down under what it was then, which was less than 250,000. So, and these are choices that the government has made, because while we were within the EU, they could legitimately say, well, we can't control this. This is because of free movement. Now, this is because of choices the government has made. And, you know, 750,000 people, OK, they bring benefits, very useful in social care, very useful the NHS, very useful for the education sector. But these people all need housing. We've got a huge housing crisis, doctors, schooling, etc. Massive pressure on infrastructure, on public services. So it's surprising in some ways that that isn't getting more attention. And I think as the election comes nearer, I mean, the government have announced some measures, haven't they? Let's see. But
because the government's making tackling immigration the main plank of their manifesto, if you like. Whereas still for a lot of people, it's about the economy, it's about the cost of living.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think ultimately, we don't know when the next election will be, but if you were Rishi Sunak, you'd want people to be feeling, if not better off, then a bit less worse off. And the cost of living crisis, I still think, to most people, is the number one issue, because prices have rocketed, the food, you know, food in the supermarkets, and most people's wages have not anything like kept up with that. So I agree, that's still, and across the board, wherever you live. But also, you know, immigration is a big deal. But yes, I think cost of living, and obviously the government are bringing in these tax cuts in the spring, but nevertheless, the overall tax burden is going to be still rising, you know, to the highest since the Second World War. So it's very difficult.
I mean, you mix with all these people down in Westminster. What's the tittle tattle about the date for the next election? Is anyone putting money on a date?
Oh, you hear it's going to be May. It's going to be the autumn. It could be. I mean, the actual latest it could be would be towards the end of January 2025. Not that I think that's likely, because who wants to go out voting?
It's not a good time for a general election.
But honestly, nobody knows. We hear, you know, they will decide, but I would be amazed unless the economy has really turned a corner and people are starting to feel substantially better off. I would be surprised if they called an election in the spring, because I just can't see them turning the economy round in that time, even if they can make headway by the autumn.
That might be a gamble, because if the small boats going across the channel in the summer goes whoosh again...
Oh, yes, that would be very bad.
They might wish they'd called it sooner.
I don't think the government really currently have got any good option.
When are the local elections? Is it May?
May. They'll
2nd?
be May. So there's some thinking that it might be good to have them there. But if you're 20 points behind in the polls, which the Conservatives have consistently been, give or take, for about a year. Why would you willingly go to the polls? Because at the moment, they're going to be annihilated.
Kiboshed.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
After that 80-seat majority in 2019.
I know, you can't get past that, can you? That's extraordinary. But I just think there's no way you'd ever cause a general election in January, because in January everybody's feeling the pinch after Christmas, you know, and that's when the credit card bills come in.
And it's an effort to go out in the dark.
And it's cold and wet and miserable, and who wants to, who cares about politics? You've had enough by then. So never January, sure.
They'd have to be really desperate, wouldn't they?
They would, yeah.
Let's see.
That's literally leaving it to the last minute, isn't it? OK, thanks so much, Catherine. Lots to talk about there. What's your idea of when the general election would be and why? Love to hear your views. gbviews@gbnews.com.
Police say there is no evidence of third-party involvement after finding a body in the hunt for missing Norwich mother Gaynor Lord.
Specialist diving teams retrieved the body from the River Wensum in the city on Friday, a week after the 55-year-old woman went missing.
Norfolk police say the identity of the body has not been confirmed, but Gaynor Lord's family have been informed.
Joining us now is retired Scotland Yard Detective Inspector Hamish Brown. A very good morning to you, Hamish. Thank you for joining us. What are your thoughts on this? This hunt, sadly, for a missing mum seems to have been progressed very differently from the last one, sadly, again, which we saw with Nicola Bulley, where I don't know, not much information has been given out. We don't really know very much about Gaynor Lord, and it's not maybe our business to know. It's been handled very differently, hasn't it?
Oh, certainly. It's almost a cliche, lessons been learnt, but in this case, they most certainly were. And I'm very pleased that the Norfolk police went into contact with those in Lancashire and moved on from there. In fairness to Lancashire, the actual investigation was very good and they were praised for it. Where they had to learn lessons, how to address themselves, is certainly the media liaison. And media liaison is so important. The last sightings of Gaynor, did it jog people's memories? Was information, relevant information, coming forward? And when the deceased, and we believe it is Gaynor, sadly, was taken from the river, the reporters, the film crews, were asked to switch off the cameras, which they did. There was cooperation on both sides, and this is absolutely essential. So I think the Norfolk police, they should be commended for the way they carried out the investigation. They've still got work to do, but the actual investigation, well done to them. And if nothing else, it's brought some sort of closure to the family.
And a post-mortem examination will work out the means of death. But also, Hamish, thank goodness for CCTV, because there was a lot of footage of her, wasn't there, to help police piece together her last known movements.
Oh, absolutely, yes. I mean, it was well used. They gave her movements. She was obviously in a hurry. There's still questions to be asked, which I don't understand. I must say, she was walking purposefully towards somewhere. She left work a little bit early. What made her do that? Perhaps that will come out in the investigation. You correctly say there will be a post-mortem examination. The matter will be referred to the coroner. The police have said there's no other person involved. So in due course, there will be an inquest. But for those who might be interested, the deceased, probably Gaynor, will be identified probably through dental records or something else, some other identification maybe she had on her. So the matter will go to the coroner. The post-mortem will take place quite soon. She will be released in the next few days, so the family can go ahead and start making any funeral arrangements. And I would guess in about the springtime, there'll be an inquest next year.
Yes, and this would obviously be an absolute tragedy any time of the year for the family. But this is just going to all happen just a few days before Christmas. You can't imagine. There will be, presumably, police liaison officers with the family helping them through this.
Oh, absolutely. The victim liaison officers, They've been with the family from the outset, and they will remain with them for a little bit further, and they've passed on that information. And indeed, I'm sure someone will assist them with the forthcoming inquest, and they might be asked to make a family statement. So the coroner, it will be open, of course, open to public, the inquest. So the coroner will know a little bit more about Gaynor and her background, and it gives the family a voice, that inquest, to make it as personal as possible. So yes, still work to be done. But I would imagine the inquest will be, depends how busy HM coroner for Norfolk is. I'm sure they are very busy. But the inquest will be opened and adjourned pending the result of police investigation. And my guess is it will be spring sometime.
Just a quick word about Christmas. I think you just sort of wonder how people operate in their various different jobs over Christmas. Obviously, the police are still going to be the police and they're still going to be around. But detectives, when you've got ongoing investigations, do you wind down at all at Christmas, or is everything kept absolutely as though Christmas wasn't happening at all?
Well, crime regrettably still goes on and people have to be seen, but it depends the stage of the investigation. There's some sensitivity by the police for not bringing people up on Christmas Day, for example. But I've dealt with some dreadful things over Christmas, and it does happen. I say life goes on, and I'm saddened to say, because of drink and other things, domestic violence rises or can rise because you put people who probably don't like one another anyway in a house, and because it's Christmas, think everyone will get on very well. But it might start well, but after a few hours and a bit too much to drink, it goes downhill from there. So the police still have their hands full, not only the uniform side, making the responses, but also the investigative side. So yes, it still progresses. Perhaps the phones aren't so busy for the CID officers, and they can catch up on that dreaded paperwork, which is burning a hole in their desk.
Yes. Okay.
So yeah, it's still all hands on deck.
Thank goodness, actually. Thank you so much, giving us a glimpse into your life, actually, at Christmas. Hamish Brown, thank you very much.
And we should actually spare a thought for all those families who have loved ones missing at Christmas.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
There are a lot of them without any resolution, and it must be so, so hard. But at least for Alex Batty, his family, his grandmother...
Yes. I wonder if he'll be back with his gran by Christmas. He should be. Because this is the extraordinary story of the little boy, and he was a little boy when he went missing. His mum, who didn't have legal guardianship of him, so we don't know why, but that's part of their family history, I suppose. His mum and his grandfather took him away for a holiday, and they never came back with him. And he has been reported missing for the last 5 years or so. Interpol, everybody, they knew they'd gone away to Europe, but didn't quite know where in the end. And then he suddenly turns up walking wet, 5 years older, walking through the Pyrenees. Luckily met a nice young man who took him to the police station. And he said, "I'm Alex Batty. You've probably been looking for me," and they had. And yes, his gran back in Oldham has been waiting for him for so long. She never, by the look of it, has ever given up hope that she'd see him again. And she spoke to him on the phone yesterday, I think it was, and said, it's definitely him, and he's coming home. And you can only imagine, can't you?
Well, there are happy endings. We have to hold on to that amid
It's
all the
lovely,
misery.
Lovely happy ending, that one.
Yeah.
8:21, let's have a quick look at some of the other stories that are making headlines this morning. And sadly, the death of Friends star Matthew Perry has been ruled an accident from the acute effects of ketamine. The toxicology report also added drowning and heart disease as contributing factors, and the report stated that anxiety. He'd been open about his struggles with addiction and sobriety, and also set up a sober living facility for men with similar issues.
Irish Premier Leo Varadkar has said there is a very clear majority, but not unanimity in the EU for a ceasefire in Gaza, a day after saying the bloc had lost credibility on the issue.
And Meghan and Harry have chosen not to include a picture with their children on their annual Christmas card. Instead, they've chosen a photo from the closing ceremony of this year's Invictus Games. do keep your photographs coming in. We're getting some lovely photographs of your Christmas lights or your street's Christmas lights or lots of dogs with Santa hats on.
And also tell us your thoughts on Christmas cards. Would you do a Harry and Meghan and do a photo like that?
A glam one.
Glamorous, not really Christmas related. Neither was the Prince and Princess of Wales card,
No, it
to be
wasn't,
fair.
true.
Do you like them, you know, simple and traditional?
Actually, neither
or-
was the King and Queen's, because it was just a picture of them
Oh,
at
the
their coronation.
coronation.
I suppose if you're that posh a family, you know,
Well,
you don't necessarily
maybe.
have to go all Christmassy with Santa
All
hats.
goes out the window. Do you know, the coronation, I think, was the biggest watched television event this year. 12 million of us watched that in May.
Oh, that must be just UK figures.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, because I would have thought it would be bigger than that worldwide. Must have been a huge worldwide audience, actually. But it was rather lovely. Those were the days. When the weather was nice, but it's not so good at the moment. Here's Alex.
Good morning, I'm Alex Deakin. This is your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. It's going to be a cloudy but mild weekend. Most of us will be dry, but where it rains, it's going to rain hard. In northwest Scotland, it's going to turn very soggy. Already a bit damp here, but the rain's going to get heavier and more persistent through the rest of the day, and it will still be blustery. Quite breezy elsewhere, but bar a bit of drizzle at times over the hills of Wales and northwest England. Most places will stay dry, but don't expect much blue sky. It's just grey, but mild. Temperatures in double figures, 12, maybe even 13 in one or two places. It'll be a mild night as well, but it's going to be a very wet night in northwest Scotland. So we have weather warnings in place here, an amber warning covering parts of the Western Highlands, eastern parts of Skye and northern parts of Argyll and Bute. That rain really building up through the night and indeed tomorrow. Elsewhere again, apart from a bit of drizzly rain at times, mostly in the west, many places will stay dry overnight, and that cloud acting like a blanket to keep the temperatures up. Another mild start on Sunday. Not much will change, although the rain will start to shift a little further south, but the rain total's really building up, giving the potential for some disruption. Even landslides are possible. We'll see some wet weather edging south across southwest Scotland too into Northern Ireland. Again, some drizzle on the hills of western England and Wales, but many central and eastern parts dry and breezy, but again, pretty mild. Bye for now.
Do stay with us. Coming up in Britain's biggest stories, we'll be looking back at the latest drama from the government's Rwanda plan. Can Rishi Sunak pull it off, or is it the end of the road? We'll be joined by one man who says he has got a plan. So don't go anywhere and let's wait for it.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Acquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's
my new teacher. Your new teacher.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. This Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello again, it's coming up to 8:30. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Anne and Pip this morning.
We are getting plenty of views from you on all sorts of things today, also your lovely Christmassy pictures as well. But in the last hour, we were talking about fining parents for taking children out of school during the term time to go on holiday. What do you think of that? Have you done it?
It's become such a big thing. And I do agree, like the guest we were talking to earlier, that we should have respect, maybe more respect, for the value of an education and just pulling kids out of school. What does that say about us? But
yeah, and he said fines should be the last resort. And when you look at, say, children in Afghanistan and in India, they're desperate to be educated. So, you know, we should really value it. What thoughts have we got?
Well, on schools, lots and lots of... Everybody's been in touch about schools. Yeah, Ian says, all I would say is if a child misses 2 weeks of class, who is responsible for catching up missed learning? It puts unfair pressure on the school.
Mars says, yes, parents should be fined and the fine should be comparable with the money they save by holidaying during term time.
Oh, that's unfair.
Additionally, the fine should double in value for each subsequent offence.
I think that's a bit harsh, isn't it?
That's a little bit OTT, I think. Thanks for the thought.
You see, Lee in Cornwall agrees. I think parents who take their children out of school for a holiday should be fined, and they should be fined more than the holiday costs to stop it from happening again.
Lucy, good morning. You say the whole problem with fining parents for removing their own children from school is the monstrous interference of the state in family life. Let families become properly responsible for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, well, if you're a teacher, you might disagree. Paul says, call the general election in the spring. Let the people decide. The Conservatives have had 13 years and an 80-seat majority, and Labour have not yet declared policies and have unions loitering and internal divisions. People are sick of it. They want a functioning government with their interests first, not egos. Very good point, you know.
Yeah, we've had some great points. I mean, look at these views we're getting in, and they're still coming. Cheryl, good morning. Maybe call the election next October, you say. Parties like Reform UK need more time to grow support.
Well, keep your views coming in, because we love your views. Thank you. But also keep your pictures coming in, please, because we love pictures even more. gbviews@gbnews.com. And the pictures we really want are of your house, your Christmas tree, your dog with a silly hat on, or your street, particularly your street. Does everybody, all the neighbours, join in with the Christmas lights?
Yeah, and do you raise a bit of money for charity at the same time? And also, how much do your energy bills go up doing it?
Well, that's another point.
It can't be cheap.
Actually, yes. Stuart, morning Stuart, says, am I the only one thinking those Christmas lights everywhere is becoming an enormous waste of electricity, particularly at the moment? I wonder if that would have actually affected anyone who wants to put up Christmas lights. Thinks, no, we actually can't afford it this year.
Maybe. Well, there've been some towns, haven't there, where the councils have said they can't do it.
And that's a real shame.
Councils. So that's another talking point.
Oh, it really is. Time now to look back at one of the biggest stories we've reported on this week.
It's been a tough old week for the Prime Minister as the Tory party looked to explode into civil war over the issue of immigration. But could a Christmas truce with the rebels be enough to stabilise Rishi Sunak's premiership?
The ayes to the right, 313. The noes to the left, 269.
And, of course, that was the government's Rwanda bill, which passed its first Commons hurdle. It was a bit of a worry. The legislation was designed to overcome barriers raised by the Supreme Court, which, of course, ruled last month that deporting people to the African nation of Rwanda was a violation of domestic and international law.
The right wing of the Tory party looks to be, reinvigorated by the issue of immigration, unsatisfied with the Prime Minister's lack of results, despite his tough talk, but eventually managed to woo the so-called rebels, did the Prime Minister.
Well, it comes as the former Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, has hit out against opponents of the Rwanda plan, citing the success of Australia in deporting illegal boat migrants.
Well, let's speak to an expert on border security, Henry Bolton, OBE. A very good morning to you. Are you pleased, I suspect you might be, that this bill got through, this Rwanda bill, but do you actually think we will see these flights take off next year? Or is it, as Labour suggests, a gimmick?
I think it is a bit of a gimmick, and I worry that everybody, all governments, Parliament, politicians, the media, the public has become fixated on Rwanda. We shouldn't be. There are a whole range of other risks out there, as well as immigration. There's all the cocaine, all the heroin. 97% of the illegal firearms that that are in this country have entered across our borders. And Rwanda won't work. I'm absolutely convinced Rwanda will not do what the government says it will do. And I actually think the reason it passed was not so much that it has the support of groups on the right of the Conservative Party, but because they did not want to create a situation that might trigger an early general election, because the Conservative Party, as your earlier piece said, is not ready for it. But what do we do? Well, the first thing is, unlike most countries in the world, we do not have a comprehensive and integrated borders. We've got 8 different agencies on our maritime borders doing patrolling. You go to Finland, you go to Canada, you go to Iceland, you go to Norway, any of these countries, and even Albania, and it is one agency that deals with all of the law enforcement type of duties on their maritime borders. Why don't we? So what we've got to do, number one, at the, if you like, at the national, international level, is we've got to join everything up. We need a national coordinator, a national task force, bringing all the agencies together and working together in mutual support. So we can, the diplomatic effort, the intelligence effort, the policing effort, the immigration effort, all of these things need to be brought together. They're not in this country. It is mind-bogglingly incompetent for us not to have done that. But it's a big piece of work, and you end up. It would take 8 to 18 months to draw up. It could be done in eight months, but you would end up with a document about 280 pages long as a plan. So we can't go through all that now. A lot of people are interested in how you could actually physically in the north, and that dealing with the push factors. Why do people leave? How do they move? And then why do they come here? That's a big piece of the. You still hear me?
No, no, Henry, we keep losing you. Sadly, the sound keeps dropping out, and it just has again. I think it's just frozen. We'll leave it for the moment, if you don't mind. I know you've got a lot to say about it, but we can't hear, which is a bit of a problem. That's Henry Bolton, who was joining us there with his views. Yeah, we're told he's in a hotel, and it's hotel Wi-Fi not working very well. Shall we cross very quickly to Aiden McGee with the sport? Hi.
How you doing? Nice to see you.
Yeah, lovely to see you.
I want to touch on something that happened this week. It was a big announcement in the world of officiating. We did discuss referees and VAR earlier in the programme, didn't we? But this is different because it was announced from the Premier League referees chief, Howard Webb, earlier in the week that we're going to see, for the first time, a female referee, Rebecca Welch, in the Premier League. Now, it's been a long time coming, but she's going to take charge of Fulham against Burnley next Saturday, December the 23rd. So it's a really big watershed moment. And I want to bring in Janie Frampton, the former referee and FIFA instructor, for more on this. Janie, good morning to you, first of all. Presumably, this is the first of many. That's the hope for everybody.
Yes, I think it's the first of many, but let's be really clear. We have to have women that are good enough. And Rebecca, whilst we've had some amazing women that have come through, Rebecca is the first one that I believe, and many believe, is good enough to operate at that level. So I'm not sure how many we're going to see quickly after Rebecca, but certainly this is literally breaking that barrier, and we will see more women coming through.
But she's earned her stripes, as you say. I mean, she was the first fourth official in a Premier League match earlier this season when Fulham played Manchester United. Janie, she's also taken charge of an EFL game and a men's FA Cup match as well.
Absolutely, Aiden. She's earned her stripes. She's come through a very tough development pathway. She's totally committed to what she's done. This is her life. You know, she's made it her life. She's made it her absolute goal to achieve. And she's absolutely good enough.
And are you surprised, though, that it's taken so long? I mean, I covered games in the Championship as far back as 2007. I remember watching Amy Rayner run the line at Luton Town and their manager afterwards making some quite disparaging comments about her. Of course, we know about Sian Massey. Why has it taken so long to get to this stage, do you feel? Because it's not as if women officials are new to the top level of the game.
No, I think what's happened, perhaps in the past, it's taken a long time for the football authorities to really pick up and develop women referees. And I think that's been the problem if you go back sort of 10, 15 years. But you're right, when you look at the likes of Sian Massey and Amy and the other girls that are operating on the Football League now, then you can see the development has taken place. It's taken a long time coming, we know that. But now we've got to really nurture those girls that are good enough and have the drive and the ambition and the commitment to go all the way.
You touched on it a minute or so ago. Why do you think it's going to take a long time for the next group to come through? Because, I mean, you know, once that barrier is broken, we tend to see a flood through the gates, don't we?
We do, but we've got to look at the level of operation of the girls coming through and those who have taken assistant refereeing as their designated rather than refereeing. So we've got 2 or 3 girls coming through as designated referees, which are still quite a long way from getting on to Football League as referees and thereafter. But it will happen. And I do think now that barrier is broken, that can really happen because we've got 2 or 3 girls out there waiting in the wings that are good enough and they're being developed now, which is hugely important.
Janie, can I ask a question? Hi, it's Anne Diamond here. I just wonder, we've been talking about Rebecca for weeks now, actually, or at least several, and it's all about next weekend. Are we putting too much stress on her? I just think it must be stressful enough for her to be trailblazing in this way. It must be stressful enough to referee a big match. But, you know, we're talking about it. She's in the headlines. Are we overdoing it a bit for her?
And it is stressful. I was part of the 3-woman team that refereed the first ever men's professional game in football, and the stress of that compared to an ordinary game was really tough. But Rebecca knows this. She knows what she's up against. She knows that the world press is going to be on her, and she will have those butterflies in her stomach because that's really healthy. But she'll get through this. She's got to consider, and I'm sure she has, is a big step up with speed of the game. The mental speed of the game is the big tough one. But what next? What's going to happen next? Sometimes the behaviour of the players is going to be a big one.
Janie, sorry, that one last question before you go. Do you think it's going to change the behaviour of players, the male players, towards the officials because it's a woman in the middle of the park?
I don't know that it'll change the behaviours because mostly we don't get a problem from players on the park, mostly. So I think they will be dutifully respectful, as they might be with any other official. Let's wait and see on that one.
And Jane, hello, it's Pip Thompson. Can I just very quickly ask you, for all the young girls that are watching and listening, how inspiring is this for them? You know, what message do you want them to learn from this, to take away?
Oh, my goodness, this is huge. You know, because we keep saying it, if you can't see it, you can't be it. And now we're going to see a woman on the Premier League, and other girls will say, my goodness, I can get there because somebody has. And that's going to be the really exciting part. You know, we're very engaged. I'm working on a project with the FA now to recruit and retain more women referees. And we need to see that they can have a pathway right to the very top.
Brilliant stuff. It's lovely to talk to you again. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anne. It's lovely to talk to you too.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks to Aiden. It'll be the first time I'll sit down and watch a Fulham v Burnley match. But I actually will, I think, because that's quite historic.
I think the behaviour of the players will change. I think we've often had a problem with respect from the men towards the men in the middle of the park. I think they might temper their behaviour now.
There's a lot of misogyny about, though, don't you think?
There is.
Are you being a bit optimistic there?
Fans, yeah, but I think the players are going to have to particularly watch their step because obviously with VAR there are microphones around now.
But I mean, you know, for her stepping onto that football pitch, and there inevitably are going to be the odd, you know, pocket of, well, low life chanting.
They will.
And abusing.
Yeah, they will, but the majority in the stadium, I believe, Pip, will be right behind her.
We'll have to watch it.
We'll have to watch
it. OK, we'll move on to... but just before we go to the break, how would you like to win £10,000 cash, brand new tech and shopping vouchers?
Sounds too good to be true, but you could be the winner of our very first Great British giveaway. Here's all the details of how you can make those prizes yours.
This is your chance to win 3 amazing prizes that will get your new year off to a great start. First, there's a terrific £10,000 in cash to be won. Imagine what you can do with that. We'll also give you a tech update with the very latest iPhone 15 Pro Max. Plus £500 worth of shopping vouchers to spend in your favourite store. The retail therapy could be on us. For another chance to win the iPhone, the vouchers and £10,000 cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB01, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday, the 5th of January. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Good luck.
Good luck indeed. Do stay with us because we're beginning asking why are people all over the world boycotting and protesting the clothes chain Zara. We'll be looking at that and more in Headline Makers coming up next.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these 3.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News.
Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 8:48 and you're watching and listening to Breakfast with Anne and Pip. And we're going to dive into some of the other news stories making headlines today with author and commentator Nikki Hodgson and Showbiz reporter Stephanie Tecci. But first, let's have a quick look at today's front pages.
The Times leads with millions of people waiting more than a month just for a GP appointment, with more and more patients going private.
The Eye warns that millions will continue to face mortgage misery as the average two-year fixed rate jumps to 6%.
The FT reports on Western countries considering how to steal hundreds of billions of dollars owned by the Russian central bank in order to give it to the Zelensky government.
Unbelievable, reads the front of The Sun, as it quotes the grandmother of kidnapped Alex Batty, who has now been found.
And front page of The Star. Apparently, academics want to strip potatoes of their vegetable status to cut obesity.
OK.
I do like that headline, though. What a spuddy outrage.
Yeah.
That's very clever.
I mean, I always think chips count as one of your 5 a day, but...
Oh, I would, absolutely. Why not? Nikki, yeah, the long wait to see a GP.
Oh, my goodness, aren't we all so fed up of this? I mean, it's just getting worse and worse. So apparently about 14.9 million appointments took place more than 28 days after they were made in the first 10 months of this year. Yeah. And that's up from 12.8 million the year before.
Wow. So in other words, you've got to wait a month?
You've got to wait a month to see. I mean, I think we've all been in that position when they say, ring us at 8 o'clock, you ring at 8 o'clock, you're in a queue and all the appointments have already gone. Yeah. I mean, I've got a little baby and I worry about if she gets sick and will I even get to see someone. They seem to be a bit better with children. But, I mean, it just kind of beggars belief, really. Yeah. And, I mean, I've got multiple things that I need to see the doctor about and I just haven't got an appointment. Yeah. I just don't bother. The thing that I have done, though, is, like lots of people are doing, is subscribe to a private GP app, which you can have on your phone and you can get an appointment in a much shorter space of time and just pay a few quid for that.
It's going to have to be the way forward because clearly we cannot depend on the NHS, which is such a shame because we had such a golden standard for the health service, which people around the world loved and respected. But now it's just crumbling in front of our eyes.
So is there an argument for those who can afford it to go private? And I know we'd end up with a two-tier system, but with the NHS now not seeming fit for purpose.
Yeah, I agree. I think health is wealth and you cannot, the longer you wait and you don't know what a condition could be or what state you're in, you have to take your health into your own hands. And I think as well, it's one of those depressing things where people just go on Google now and they're trying to figure out what they've got wrong or they're trying to self-prescribe themselves.
And that's a rabbit hole you do not want to go down.
And also, apparently, 28,000 deaths in the first 6 months of this year were for minor conditions, things that could have been stopped earlier if they'd actually seen somebody for an appointment. That's a terrible statistic. You can't get into a position where you just put it off because you can't get an appointment. So, I mean, it's maddening. I've just kind of thought, I just have to go private, even though I don't agree with that.
I feel like, because still you find yourself asking, what is causing this?
Yeah.
What on earth is causing this? I mean, is it lazy GPs? One presumes not. So I feel like standing outside my GP surgery and ticking people.
Yeah.
Are you going in for an appointment? When did you make it? And actually doing some sort of survey.
I know. Well, apparently there's a shortage of GPs, as we do know, because they feel like their working hours are just too long.
But I tell you what, there isn't a shortage of private GPs.
No, isn't that funny? Yeah, exactly. So maybe it's perhaps they feel like they're not getting paid enough or being treated well enough.
Do they have the same kind of knowledge and service as NHS staff?
They should be properly
Because
qualified.
I hear, like, you know, if it got to things like surgery, sometimes they end up taking you back to the NHS or to a mainstream hospital. So then you think,
the other thing is, I think a lot of it is to do with the expense of qualifying to become a doctor. You know, it's extortionate to be able to become a doctor in this country, even if you just become a GP. And you know, same with nursing. We've got to do something about improving the way that people can train in the first place.
And even when you do have an appointment, the doctors are tired when you're in there and they're like trying to rush you out because they're thinking, I need to get to the next appointment. So you don't feel like...
I mean, the appointment is meant to be, what, 8 minutes?
Yeah,
at the
8
max.
minutes.
And they say one issue each.
Oh, yes.
They make that point.
You can't take multiple issues.
No.
You can't take a list of
waiting
things.
about 6 months.
Yeah. A load of problems, basically.
OK, cheer us up, Steph. It's the Strictly final tonight.
You know I love Strictly, and I think it's been a great series from Angela Rippon, from Annabelle Croft, who got into the show to help her deal with the grief of losing her husband this year. But now we're down to the final 3 contestants. We're either going to have a groundbreaker champion, with it being the first same-sex couple with Leighton Williams and his dance partner Nikita. They've done fabulous, this male pairing, but he's got a lot of slack because he's been professionally trained. He's got a dance background.
But a lot of them have gone to theatre school.
They have, but I think...
So I think that's really unfair to home in on him.
And I think it's going to probably work against him. I think even though they've been great and they've topped the leaderboard twice, I just don't think he's going to win. But then we've got Ellie Leach and her dance partner, Vito Coppola, and they've done amazing. They've topped the leaderboard 4 times. She's a Corrie star, and I think she's the one that's going to win it. She is the bookies' favourite, and I think they haven't put a foot wrong the whole season.
A lot of commentators like Bobby Brazier.
Yes, and if he wins, he'll be the youngest Strictly champion. He's 20 years old. He's done amazing again.
He's Jade Goody's son.
Yeah.
And it's somehow lovely to, you know, she made her name as a reality TV star, and her son could win Strictly.
I know.
And he wasn't professionally trained in any way at all. He was a total newbie.
He's just got loads of personality, hasn't he, as well?
Has,
he's just so lovely.
He's quite charming.
Yeah.
So tonight they're going to be performing 3 dances, their favourite dance that they've performed from the series, the judges' favourite, and then they'll do a show dance where all the rules go out the window. So I think it's going to be a very thrilling
I know
final.
not to ring my mum during Strictly tonight, because she won't pick up.
I'm going to miss it when it goes. I think Strictly is just one of the best shows we've got out there.
Yeah.
Well, we have to leave it there. It's been a very short look at the newspapers, but thank you so much. And we better whiz towards the weather.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, I'm Alex Deakin. This is your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. It's going to be a cloudy but mild weekend. Most of us will be dry, but where it rains, it's going to rain hard. In northwest Scotland, it's going to turn very soggy. Already a bit damp here, but the rain's going to get heavier and more persistent through the rest of the day, and it will still be blustery. Quite breezy elsewhere, but bar a bit of drizzle at times over the hills of Wales and northwest England. Most places will stay dry, but don't expect much blue sky. It's just grey, but mild. Temperatures in double figures, 12, maybe even 13 in 1 or 2 places. It'll be a mild night as well, but it's going to be a very wet night in northwest Scotland. So we have weather warnings in place here. An amber warning covering parts of the Western Highlands, eastern parts of Skye and northern parts of Argyll and Bute. That rain really building up through the night and indeed tomorrow. Elsewhere again, apart from a bit of drizzly rain at times, mostly in the west, many places will stay dry overnight, and that cloud acting like a blanket to keep the temperatures up. Another mild start on Sunday. Not much will change, although the rain will start to shift a little further south. But the rain...
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa!
Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's my new
It's your new t-shirt.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. This Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show, every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. It's 9 o'clock on Saturday, the 16th of December. Today, he really is trying everything. Today, Rishi Sunak goes to Italy to meet their radical right-wing Prime Minister in a desperate attempt to save his premiership and stop the boats. But will this meeting achieve anything?
A small island community in Scotland has saved its only shop and post office after funding a buyout. We'll speak to one of their community leaders in just a moment.
And a body has been found in the search for missing mother, Gaynor Lord, who was last seen after she left work early in Norwich on Friday. Local police say there's a high probability that it is her.
A subject of intense debate, this. Is turkey the king of Christmas meats? A British festive staple for half a century after a real king made it popular. But with bird flu and changing tastes, how are our turkey farmers faring? We'll bring you that report.
And the climate conference, COP28, wrapped up on Tuesday with the world's biggest nations agreeing how to help tackle climate change. But do we know the actual reality of that outcome? Andrew Eborn will be joining us live in the studio when he's going to be asking us what is fake and what is fact.
And Alex has the weather facts.
Cloudy, mild and breezy sums up the weather this weekend. For most of us, it will be dry, but where it rains in northwest Scotland, It's going to rain hard and there are Met Office warnings in place. Join me later for a full forecast.
And as ever, we want to hear from you. Any of your pictures, any of your opinions, we'd love to see them. gbviews@gbnews.com or tweet us @gbnews.
We've been asking you to send in your pictures as we are looking for anything that shows the Christmas spirit, and you have happily obliged, so thank you so much. Brian says, we have tried to be creative. Here is the best washing liquid bottle in South Wales. Actually, Brian, that is ingenious.
It's quite a good way to put a star on the top of the Christmas tree, isn't it?
Because I always have a problem with that. Mine goes lopsided.
And of course it says the word fairy. Very well done. I like that. Whimsical.
Yeah.
John says, good morning. Here's a card I made from a photo I took of our town square in Unhost in the Czech Republic. That is a wonderful photograph.
Very pretty.
Merry Christmas to our grandchildren.
Does that tree
it
look
says.
a bit lopsided?
Oh, I don't
Not quite as wonky as the tree we had in England a few
I
weeks
passed
ago.
Trafalgar Square yesterday and the tree looks dreadful.
Oh, really?
There's hardly anything of it. Could grow a bigger one in my back garden. Michelle says, hi, girls. This is the Christmas card we're sending out.
Oh, the onesies are out.
It's our first ever family photo, and my daughter Jordan went all out to get this done. She's done a grand job. You see, I love those because a lot of families nowadays do wear the matching pyjamas on Christmas Day,
Yeah,
don't
and
they?
see, that has got a Christmas theme.
I like that very
Family
much.
photos are great, but
well done.
It needs to be Christmassy. Anne says, Merry Christmas from... Oh, no, Anne, that's you. Merry Christmas from Ellie in Sydney, Australia. Oh, that is so sweet.
That's lovely.
Little chihuahua, I think.
Yeah, in Australia. Oh, lovely to see you. I've spent many Christmases in Australia. You have to think of something different. Dave and Linda say, not many houses have Christmas lights on yet, but I do it for the little children walking by every day, as we live near a primary school, and they love seeing them. Do you know, that's a really lovely thought.
It is, because it's so dark in the morning, isn't it?
Walking to school is much more fun if you walk past beautifully lit houses like that. Well done. Thank you so much for those pictures. Absolutely grand. Now, I wonder, we're all wondering, actually, what sort of Christmas the Prime Minister is going to have. Does he get a day off at all? I doubt it, actually, with the sort of mire he's in at the moment. He's actually gone to Rome today for a meeting with Italy's radical right Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni, with the pair expected to discuss their shared perspectives on illegal immigration.
Rishi Sunak will also be attending a right-wing conference organised by the ruling party, the Brothers of Italy, whose guest list includes the Albanian Prime Minister and Elon Musk.
So let's find out what's going on there with GB News' political correspondent, Catherine Forster. It'll be lovely to understand exactly... I'd love to hear what they actually say to each other and whether anything gets done or do they just sympathise with each other?
Well, they both have very shared problems. Let's see what, if anything, emerges. But yes, Rishi Sunak was at COP28, wasn't he then, battling his own party to get the Rwanda legislation passed, and now at a fortress near the Vatican for this right-wing festival, if you like, with the Italian PM, Giorgia Meloni, and the Albanian Prime Minister will also be there. He will be talking to both of them specifically about how to crack down on illegal migration and the smuggling gangs, the crime gangs that facilitate it. And he and Giorgia Meloni both came in October last year. They're a similar age. They both got daughters. They clearly get on very, very well indeed. He gives her that sort of credibility on the international stage because she's sort of seen as being quite far right. And she gives him a friend in the European Union. So they, the problems of migration, 29,000 crossing small boats this year across the Channel. The government very keen to say that's down a third, but obviously still a huge mountain to climb, given they've pledged to stop the boats. But in Italy, even worse, 130,000 have crossed illegally this year. And the Italian island of Lampedusa, they had 11,000 in 5 days.
But that's more than the
September.
population, I think, of Lampedusa, isn't it?
Absolutely huge. So you can understand the locals using terms like invasion. Suella Braverman said that came in for a lot of criticism. But a real issue, and similar to here, Giorgia Meloni has tried to get offshore processing up and running. So the idea is she would send them to Albania when they arrive. They'll be processed there. But an Albanian court on Wednesday has blocked that. So she's now involved in a battle with the courts, and we'll see what happens in January. But net migration, you know, people coming illegally across from North Africa and wherever across the Mediterranean is up massively into Europe this year. So this is a problem that is not going away, and increasingly across Europe they are looking at trying to get people processed offshore, but easier said than done.
You sort of sense, don't you, Rishi Sunak has almost made this a stick with which we can beat him, because he said he's going to do it. It's one of his 5 pledges, and he talks about it a lot, and obviously he's just gone there to try and talk about it. But you sense that actually this is much more than a one country's problem. If it's such a global or certainly European problem, then we have to find a better way to fix it than just pushing Rishi to fix it. He can't himself, can he?
No, and the forecasts are that this is only going to go up as climate change worsens, as Africa, other countries, and conflict. And so lots of people fleeing war, fleeing persecution, and lots of economic migrants. And the thing is, within the EU, the Dublin Agreement, they're supposed to claim asylum in the first safe country. That puts a massive burden on countries like Italy, on Greece, but there's plenty of other countries in the EU, Poland, Hungary, Denmark, Austria, who've basically said, no, we're not taking any migrants at all, thank you very much. So incredibly difficult, and looks like it's only going to get more so. So we are not alone, but as you say, Rishi Sunak has made this huge totemic pledge emblazoned, you know, on the lectern, stop the boats. And
when it may be something that he can't actually deliver.
No, and I mean, the Rwanda plan, if and when it happens, if and when it gets through the House of Commons, there'll be another battle in January, the House of Lords. There's no guarantee that the courts aren't going to get involved. There's no guarantee that anyone, and we've now spent about 400 million, haven't we, is going to go to Rwanda.
And when he goes to Italy, what will he hope the optics will show? Is it to do with appealing to the right-wing arm of the Tory party? He's got a lot on his plate. Why does he feel the need to go?
I think it's partly that he feels comfortable on the sort of world stage and he has this common bond with her. He hopes to get something from it in terms of agreements to work together, to work more closely. But I think, yes, too, it's messaging to the right of the party and to the public to say, look, I am trying, I'm on it, I'm trying to do this. Look at me, you know, this is a shared problem. And but the thing is that they're 20 points behind in the polls still. These 5 pledges that he made almost a year ago, at the time that they were made, everybody said, oh, they're not very exciting, they're not very ambitious. And the idea was that they'd sort of crack those and then they'd make some more ambitious ones. But, you know,
Would you think it would have been better to have reduce legal migration? You know, that stands at 745,000. Would that not have been a better pledge rather than stop the boats, which is a fraction of that?
Apart from the fact that the government came in, you know, pledging to get it to tens of thousands and it's now at 750,000. I mean, they clearly need to get that down too, don't they? And they've made these various pledges that's going to do it. But this has all happened on their watch, and the Home Office is very keen to get net migration down, but the Treasury likes the money that comes in from more people coming into the country. The university sector loves the money because it charges foreign students twice as much as domestic students, and the health sector likes and really, really needs the health workers.
I know Labour is saying this at the moment, that they would spend the sort of money that we've already spent on Rwanda, they would spend that on more training quickly, more and more officers who could actually process the illegal migrants. And you wonder whether that wouldn't be a better idea, is actually process the legal migrants much quicker and let those that can work, and then reduce the legal migrants. So in other words, you're sort of turning some of the illegals into legals.
Well, there's a lot of people say that, yes, we should let people work while they are waiting for their claims to be processed. Some of them, of course, are waiting for years. Others say, well, that would just increase the pull factors to make people come. But now the government will say, oh, we've got more caseworkers, we are working on the backlog, but the backlog has gone up and up and up. OK, the legacy backlog is going down, but we are still spending £7 million putting people up in hotels. We had that tragic death on the Bibby Stockholm barge last week, didn't we? And so you do think, why is it taking so long? Surely that is...
And is it taking so long because they are putting everything into Rwanda, into the Rwanda scheme? And maybe that's the wrong thing to do.
And also, they need to stop people coming in the first place, don't they? They need to tackle these gangs at source, which is something they say they are doing, something Labour say they would do. But, you know, the government are not making a great job of it, but we have no way of knowing that Labour would be any better. And, in fact, traditionally are much softer on immigration, aren't they? So
there's no answer to this one, is there, really? Thanks so much, Catherine. We'll talk about it. Let's hope not for another year, but you never know, do you? Do let us... Well, you're letting us know your views, actually. Thank you very much. Some of them are quite heated. Now, here at Breakfast, we love to hear stories that highlight the sense of community and bring people together.
The community on the Isle of Lismore in Scotland has been fighting to save its only shop and post office after the school teacher who's been running it returned to the classroom.
Yes, right. So joining us now, live from Lismore, is Andy Hugh, who's chair of the Lismore Community Trust. Good morning, Andy. Right, so where are you now and what's happened since we last said that you have managed to save your only shop?
Yeah, it's good. It's raining here on Lismore and the ferries are threatened to be off because of the wind and so on, and tidal restrictions, but it's all good. Yeah, we've opened our shop. We've got a young manager. We've transferred one of the assistants. So things are going well. We've raised all the money that we need and the community's getting behind it. They feel they've got a stake in it and things are starting to happen. It's really good.
Sorry, Pip, how many people live on the island?
We've got 160. We're quite a diverse community. So we've got a number of retired people, like myself, some people ageing, find it difficult to get out of their homes and so on. And we've got young families returning. They've maybe been brought up on Lismore and now come back and are raising their families here, which makes it a really interesting environment, even though maybe people think there's not very many of us.
So without a shop, Andy, where would people go for essentials? How far would they have to travel?
Well, it's a cross on a ferry ride. I mean, we're fortunate we've got both a passenger ferry and a vehicle ferry, but the vehicle ferry journey is about 45 minutes, takes you across to Oban, and there are 4 a day, but they also get disrupted. So tidal restrictions come into play, and it makes it difficult to plan and get a sort of consistent supply of the things that you need. So having a shop, we thought, is essential. It's not only a shop, it's a post office. And so we offer the banking services, they can post their parcels, all those sorts of things.
It sounds absolutely vital. I mean, you're in the Inner Hebrides, aren't you? You're one of those Inner Hebrides islands. Do you get many tourists then in the summer?
Yes, we get quite a number of tourists coming through to us, and it's important, we feel, that they have a sort of shop that they can use for their supplies, and it brings something to the economy and something to the community. We've got a lot of people offering small business arrangements in terms of crafts and arts and foodstuffs. And we feel it's important that there is a facility and an outlet so that the tourists can purchase from them.
And what's it like to live, excuse me, quick cough, what's it like to live in such a small place, Andy? Because I get the impression you're not from there originally. What took you there?
No, I'm not. I'm not from here, but the sailing and the environment has brought me here. It's just a fantastic place to be, and we've had a lot of support from people who visit on a very regular basis from near and far. They equally have got behind this initiative to purchase a community shop and post office.
So who's actually going to run it?
We've got a manager because it's important to us to look at local employment. And so the manager is a young lady that has got children and feels that they can supplement their own micro business, small business, making soaps and things, with running the shop and managing the shop. And it's working really very, very well. We've also transferred a long-standing assistant, Bob, who is very well known on the island and is loved by visitors and residents alike. And between them, they are making a really strong and sort of interesting enterprise that the community is getting behind in terms of their purchases and their commitment and their enthusiasm, because we're very involved.
Is Lismore famous for any particular, I don't know, do you brew your own whiskey or something?
Sadly, we don't brew our own whiskey. Okay. There is a Lismore, but it's not brewed here. Where we've got some really interesting historical features. We've got an old cathedral, and the wildlife environment is very much something that people come to have a look at. So yes, it's not got one particular thing. We've not got a sort of gin or anything of that order, but our environment is really very, very special, and some of the heritage features of it are really very special.
And so Andy, are you expecting... Sorry, we're running out of time. I just wanted to quickly ask you, are you expecting a bit of a Christmas rush?
Well, we're hoping so, yes. People might be buying their sort of occasional Christmas presents and things. Yes, we have got a lot of Christmas lines that we've put into place, and are hoping that yes, that will increase our turnover and make sure that we sort of break even. We're not about trying to be hugely entrepreneurial, make a lot of money. We just want to be able to offer a service to the community that is so important. And yeah, if we can break even with that, that's great. Yeah.
It sounds fabulous. It really does. You said you took the decision.
It is.
Yeah, you said you took the decision to go there. Are you happy you did? Because it sounds as though you're very happy.
I am, yes. Very happy. I mean, it is a really friendly island. It's got a lot of incredible features associated with it. But this enterprise, I think, has really brought the community together. When you bring the community together, some really good things happen. And so we're really pleased with it.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of support, but it's great. Yeah.
Send us a picture of your Christmas lights. At the shop, are you going to put lights up?
Oh, yes, we'll be decorating it and making it very, very Christmassy. A lot of people on the island engage with Christmas, so there are lights and things around already.
Where are you getting your turkey from, Andy?
Well, we haven't actually got any turkeys, but we've got people who are very specialist in producing grass-fed beef and so on, which is another opportunity to provide an outlet for them, because people come across to the island and really feel that that's something special, because we want the tourists, and we offer tours around the island and so on. It's a very interesting, special place, and retaining the shop through offering community shares has really sort of brought things together.
Brilliant idea. Brilliant idea. Take some pictures for us, will you, and send them to us. It's gbviews@gbnews.com. Dead easy to do, and we'll show your pictures tomorrow.
Yeah. Happy Christmas, Andy.
Yeah, happy
Thanks
Christmas.
for talking to us.
What a lovely, lovely gentleman.
I'm sold.
And what a lovely, lovely place. I was just looking up Lismore to see pictures of it. And if you Google Lismore, there's one in New South Wales, there's one in Victoria, Australia, there's one in Nova Scotia, Canada, there's one in County Waterford in Ireland. It goes on and on. Lismore Castle in County Waterford. There's lots of Lismores around the world. That's why we want to see some pictures, please. That would be nice to show you tomorrow.
Yeah. But the one in Scotland sounds like the best.
Oh, absolutely.
Especially its shop. Especially its shop.
Yeah. Let's see a picture of the shop tomorrow, please. Right now, I bet it's a bit chilly up in Lismore. Don't know how it is for the rest of us, so let's find out. Here's Alex Deakin.
Good morning, I'm Alex Deakin. This is your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. It's going to be a cloudy but mild weekend. Most of us will be dry, but where it rains, it's going to rain hard. In northwest Scotland, it's going to turn very soggy. Already a bit damp here, but the rain's going to get heavier and more persistent through the rest of the day, and it will still be blustery. Quite breezy elsewhere, but bar a bit of drizzle at times over the hills of Wales and northwest England, most places will stay dry, but don't expect much blue sky. it's just grey, but mild. Temperatures in double figures, 12, maybe even 13 in one or two places. It'll be a mild night as well, but it's going to be a very wet night in northwest Scotland. So we have weather warnings in place here, an amber warning covering parts of the Western Highlands, eastern parts of Skye and northern parts of Argyll and Bute. That rain really building up through the night and indeed tomorrow. Elsewhere again, apart from a bit of drizzly rain at times, mostly in the west, many places will stay dry overnight, and that cloud acting like a blanket to keep the temperatures up. Another mild start on Sunday. Not much will change, although the rain will start to shift a little further south, but the rain total is really building up, giving the potential for some disruption. Even landslides are possible. We'll see some wet weather edging south across southwest Scotland too into Northern Ireland. Again, some drizzle on the hills of western England and Wales, but many central and eastern parts dry and breezy, but again, pretty mild. Bye for now.
Do stick with us, because coming up, what do gift tags, candy canes and several layers of hardened code have in common?
What's hardened code?
It's me. They're all elements of an annual brain teaser, apparently, for UK school children.
And it's for UK school children. I didn't even know what you're talking about.
These are questions set. They're Christmas questions set by GCHQ. Anyway, we'll find out all about it in just a couple of moments.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Ah!
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox,
That's right, we want to hear from you,
GB News.
Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. Welcome back. It's 9:26 and you're watching and listening to Breakfast this morning with Anne and Pip.
Now, do you have what it takes to be a spy? GCHQ have released their annual Christmas Codebreaker to test your own skills of deduction.
And apparently this is the third edition of the challenge, very popular at Christmas. It's designed around a Christmas card sent by Anne Keast-Buckler, the director of Britain's intelligence agency.
We're joined in the studio by espionage author Nigel West, who can tell us more. Nigel, these puzzles are supposed to be easy, and I'm not sure that we're going to be able to do
They're
them.
not.
No, but they're for school children.
In the seven... Oh, no. These are for adults.
OK. Good.
So there is a separate set of quizzes for children. And the idea is to interest and grab the attention of children in a particularly competitive field. And the idea also is to try and find people who've got these particular quirky skills. They may be slightly on the spectrum as far as we're concerned, but in terms of cryptanalysis, it's really important to be able to get these people.
Because that's what they did when at Bletchley Park when they were recruiting people. They didn't just look at people who'd been trained or trained mathematicians or whatever. They went for people who were good at crosswords and sort of had lateral thinking abilities.
It was the first test that particularly the women were put through was, were they good at crossword puzzles? And they were put in a room in order to see who was best. And this is a fundamental skill for cryptology, which is really important. And it's quite separate from the other skills that are needed by GCHQ, which are, of course, languages.
Oh,
OK.
yes, of course.
Well, we've got a couple of quizzes here, Anne.
Which, yeah...
No pressure on us.
No pressure. We've just done a 3.5-hour programme live on television and now we've got to work this out. I don't know if we are. But everybody at home, you can have a look too. The first one is clocks. And Nigel, you haven't had a go at this yet. These clocks show a 4-letter word. It's all to do with Christmas, so you can think that way.
Christmas something.
Yeah. Oh, really? These clocks show a 4-letter word. Can you work it out? Now, the clocks that show... The first clock on the left is 8 p.m, and it's interesting that it says p.m. The next one shows 9 a.m, the next one shows 1 p.m, and the next one shows 5 a.m.
I think I know it.
Do you?
Yes.
Go on.
Can I have a go?
Yeah.
Time. Is it right, Nigel?
I think so.
Christmas time.
Why would that... you'll have to explain that. Why is it time?
Nigel, do you want to explain?
No, you go ahead.
I've got to explain.
Yeah.
Well, I knew... It's Christmas something, and every single clock is showing the time.
So you're saying
Christmas
it's
time.
completely irrelevant, the time that it's showing?
Well...
Why would they be bothering to say PM, AM, PM, AM? Why are some of the clocks
Well, it's
black
to throw you off the
others
scent,
white?
isn't it?
Well, maybe it is. What do you think, Nigel?
Well, I think there are 11 different stages of this, and this is the very first one. So if we can't get this one...
We're a bit stuck.
But you end up with a message that you would find inside a Christmas card. That's the fundamental behind it.
I've just been told the time is in 24-hour format and the letters correspond to the numbers.
OK, so that... No, hang on, I'm fed up with this
I think
already.
a clue is the first one, which is 8 p.m.
Yes.
That is 2000 hours.
2000, so that's T. The next one is 9 a.m.
Oh, yes.
Which is N. No, that's
not right either.
That's not right.
This is going really well, isn't it, everybody?
Yeah. We're not very good at it.
Should we do the next one?
Should we have a go at a riddle?
See how much worse this can get. Right, can you solve this riddle? What breaks but cannot fall, can leap but never crawl, can be seized but never gripped, often present, never skipped?
Time.
Again?
Well,
how did you reach that answer?
I don't know what breaks, but it can be seized. You seize time, can't grip it. It's always present, never skipped. That's time. Time can leap. A year, it could be year.
Leap year.
Leap year, but never crawl. What breaks but cannot fall? Well, winter breaks. Time doesn't break. So it's Christmas something.
Daybreak.
Is that the answer?
Daybreak.
No, well...
No, hasn't it got to come after the word Christmas?
No.
I'm getting this totally
So is it
wrong.
Christmas
There are
time,
lots
then?
of other words for Christmas. For example, Yuletide.
Yes.
That's one of the possibilities, but not in this particular section.
So some clever person in the gallery has just told us the answer.
I don't want to tell you it yet. Can we have another look at the riddle on screen, just so everybody else can go through the agony we're going through? Oh, we don't have it on screen.
OK, well, so we'll just say it quickly again.
Yeah.
What breaks but cannot fall.
Oh, yes, you're
can
right,
leap
Nigel.
but never crawl. Can be seized but never gripped. Often present, never skipped.
Yes.
And it's Christmas.
OK, it's day, apparently. What breaks but cannot fall, clearly daybreak. Can leap but never crawl, leap year's day. Can be seized but never gripped, you seize the day, don't you? Often present, present day, never skipped. Oh, that's good.
It is, but the purpose behind this, don't forget, is to grab the interest of people who are deciding what kind of a career they want to pursue. And this is an opportunity to go and work for GCHQ.
And this is what people will be doing a lot of over Christmas.
I'm afraid so.
Yeah.
Quite sad, isn't
Do
it?
you think at GCHQ they actually do use these sort of... If you were to go for an
No. This is an indication of the way your mind is wired and the kind of skills that they need. So there are a whole variety of different skills that GCHQ needs. They don't pay a great deal.
Do they not?
Not as much as the outside private sector. And that's why grabbing the attention of people and showing that this is an option for them and makes it very attractive for them to be able to work in an environment where there are these other nutcases.
Yes, you're sitting amongst like minds. But what sort of work are they doing? I mean, again, when Bletchley Park became known, we found that they had literally been doing this, trying to use their minds before the actual computer was invented, to use their minds to crack codes.
Well,
do they do anything like that now? I mean, what are they up to?
Yes. I mean, first of all, they're looking at algorithms. Secondly, they're looking at communication systems. Thirdly, they're looking at cryptographic systems. And they're trying to read people's traffic. And this it goes back to 1919, when the GCHQ sort of began. I mean, it started its present life in 1946, but the organisation started in 1919. And it's just simply a matter of looking at other people's communications. And if you consider the contribution that Bletchley Park made to the Second World War, this is astonishing.
Yes.
But the important thing to remember is this is about people, not machines. And if you look at the history of GCHQ, it is very remarkable that in, for example, 1934, it was the discovery that the Communist Party of Great Britain were using Treasure Island as a book key to their cipher systems. As soon as it was discovered, and it took an agent to identify that it was Treasure Island, as soon as they got that, they were able to read the traffic, the daily wireless traffic to Moscow of the Communist Party of Great Britain, and that proved for the first time to the cabinet that the Communist Party was not a legitimate political organisation, wasn't a political party as we knew it.
And it's only a human being who maybe had read Treasure Island himself or herself that would have noticed that.
Precisely.
Yeah. And isn't that also true? There was a story of they've got lots and lots of incoming German messages, and they still hadn't managed to crack their code. They were still working on the decoder. What was it called? The
bomber.
Enigma.
Or Enigma.
I'm thinking.
Okay.
And they found that it was finding a key, and they realised in the end that every message ended with the words Heil Hitler. Because that's how the Germans always signed off. And they realised that that was the same thing. And some bright spark said, well, that's what that'll be. And the minute they were able to see what the code was for Heil Hitler, it gave them the key to the rest of the message. And only a human being would have seen that and known that that's the way you sign off a message.
That's absolutely correct. And there is also something called a barium meal. So you use a double agent to send a message to your opponents. They then re-encipher that message in their cipher system, and because you've got the original clear text, you can just reverse engineer. So the human dimension to this is enormously important. It's not just clever people trying to emulate an Enigma machine, or Colossus, which was the first programmable computer system, which was used against Geheimschreiber, which was the huge 10-rotor German cipher system.
These stories are wonderful. I love these stories.
I don't think we'd have stood a chance.
I hate the riddles. No, I'm not into that. But I love the stories about that. Thank you so much for coming in and joining in with us there. None of us were that brilliant at it, but it would be an interesting one to put in front of the family this Christmas. It's better than those stupid rhymes and riddles that come out of the crackers, isn't it?
What about charades?
But that causes problems.
Arguments.
It causes rows in the house across the dinner table. OK, so how would you like to win £10,000 cash, brand new tech and shopping vouchers?
Well, you could be the winner of our very first Great British Giveaway. Here's all the details of how you can make those prizes yours.
You really could be the winner of the very first Great British Giveaway and receive nearly £12,000 worth of prizes from us. First, we've got a simply stunning £10,000 in tax-free cash to give you. Cash that you can spend on anything you like. Next, how about a new phone? You'll also get a brand new iPhone 15 Pro Max. And if all of that wasn't enough, how about a further £500 in shopping vouchers to spend at the store of your choice? For another chance to win the iPhone, the vouchers and £10,000 cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB01, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday, the 5th of January. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Good luck.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa!
Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's
my new
It's
teeth.
your new
I
teeth.
know.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11. Join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. This Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 9:41. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Anne and Pip. Now it's that time of year when we talk about turkeys. About 10 million of them are eaten in the UK every year. A quarter of those are Brits buying Christmas birds months in advance. Of course, you do pay up front, don't you, to prepare for the big day.
Turkeys have been a staple of the UK festive feast for nearly 500 years after King Henry VIII popularised eating turkey for Christmas dinner.
Our reporter Anna Riley visited a turkey farm in East Yorkshire to see how they're faring after bird flu wiped out more than 500,000 wild birds last year.
John Holtby has farmed turkeys in Yorkshire for over 20 years. But last year, the industry was in crisis when over 500,000 turkeys had to be culled or died due to bird flu. This Christmas, John and other turkey farmers up and down the country are hoping for a better festive season.
People got rather spooked by bird flu and stopped buying, so the orders were very slow. They nearly caught up towards the end. We didn't get bird flu, but we had bird flu nearby. This year, there are recent cases of bird flu, so we are worried about it as we run towards Christmas.
Free-range turkeys do cost more, but with this comes a better quality of meat.
Most people think of Christmas and think of a turkey, so we're trying to provide the best possible turkey for them to make their Christmas dinner the most important dinner of the year. It's like anything, you sort of pay, you get what you pay for.
Here, the turkeys are reared from day-old chicks.
We have them under a heat lamp in a stable. From there, they then get brought out here when they're about a month or two old. And then they're brought to maturity. So these are really the only birds that actually are reared to maturity, which is what gives them the flavour as well, because they have natural fats that are allowed to develop.
This Christmas, the NFU want people to buy British.
I encourage people to buy the best turkey that they can afford. Now, that might be from their local farm or their local butcher, it might be from a supermarket, it might even be a frozen product. Buy the best you can afford. It's all about creating memories at Christmas. And I don't think anybody sits back from the table and says, goodness me, that turkey was cheap. But they might say, goodness me, that turkey was good.
But no matter how good the turkey, some in Yorkshire won't be following tradition.
I'm actually vegetarian, so I'll be having some sort of nut roast with the corn and various other bits as well. But yeah, no turkey for me.
It's my mum that buys free bird roast, so it's just something we've been brought up with, having free bird roast instead of turkey.
Turkey, probably a good option. Something to get you started. Mashed potatoes, that's a good one. A bit of peas, carrots, bit of gravy, if you're feeling a bit daring.
I love beef. There's no better than beef, to be honest.
I'll have for Christmas prawns.
And with the leftovers of the Christmas turkey, families are bound to be gobbling it into the new year. Anna Riley, GB News.
I always find them rather alarming things, turkeys.
What, when they're alive?
Yeah, they're very big and sort of aggressive, but tasty. Sorry, I didn't mean to say that.
She likes them when they're dead, not when they're alive.
Well, I'm sorry about that. Poor old turkeys. Yeah, OK. Now, move on. Don't forget, by the way, we're off air in a few minutes, but then it's Saturday Morning Live with Ellie Costello and Peter Andre, and they're over there, the other end of the studio. Hi, guys. What's on?
Oh, hello. We're so busy having a chat already.
Hi.
Yeah, we're just saying, we're really looking forward to today's show. We're really, really excited for it. It's absolutely packed, isn't it, Pete?
We've got going to start with my good friend Jenny Bond, and we're going to talk about Prince Harry. Of course, he won yesterday. His phone was hacked, but what does that mean? Is he going to go for the other tabloids now? So we don't know.
Yeah, what's it mean for the family as well? Because he's been vindicated, hasn't he? A court of law has said your phone was hacked. He wasn't paranoid, so we're going to be asking Jenny about what that means for the royal family. Could this be the start of them coming back together? We'll be asking her that, won't we?
Yeah.
We're also going to be talking about, are we learning the right things in schools? Are we teaching our children the right things? This is because the government is talking about giving tax lessons and financial lessons to kids when they're taking their A-levels. I would have loved something like that at school.
Yeah, and
Something
should it just stop there? You know, there's a lot of life lessons that can be taught in schools, so that's really interesting.
So we're going to be talking about that as well. And we've got a great guest for you at the end of the show today, haven't we?
We do. My good friend Kenny Thomas is on, legend. I played you the song and you couldn't stop singing it
it's
after that, so that's going to be great.
Yeah.
And should parents be fined for taking their kids out of school during term time?
We've just been talking about that this morning.
Honestly, it's a really interesting point, and I'm sure we've got our own views about that.
We certainly do, yeah. And we want to hear your views as well, because this show is nothing without you, so do get in touch with us today. gbviews@gbnews.com. It's a packed show. Do join us 10 till 12. It's going to be fun.
OK, guys, we'll see you a bit later on then. Right now, though, it's time for another episode of Andrew Eborn's Fake or Fact. Woohoo! And we're wondering what you've got in store for us today. What lessons are you going to teach us?
Well, tonight, I was wondering, when you were talking about big, aggressive but tasty, I was rather hoping you were referring to me, but it was the turkeys. You worked on that sort of basis. But talking about turkeys, talking about Christmas, well, COP28, the biggest oil territory in the world, virtually, made rich by that, hosted COP28. And what happens, it was the biggest climate conference ever. They claim to have about 85,000 politicians. And groundbreaking rules is what they're saying, is that it's the beginning of the end of fossil fuel. But in amongst all of that, I thought we could unpack some of the claims that happened, because one of the most controversial things is Sultan Al Jaber, who's the chief executive of the state-owned oil company, Abu Dhabi National Oil Company. He was the president. And interestingly, he got a PhD from Coventry. Did you know that?
Really?
It was rather fun, isn't it? I'm talking about being sent to Coventry and things like that. But what he said is there were all sorts of claims that came out in our media, which he said were false. And so I thought we should have a look at some of those claims and actually do the benefit of a service for him, if you like, to have a look at that. Now, one of the things which emerged fairly early on was a claim, and we've got it here, I think we've got a clip as well, which we'll play in a bit. But basically, the headline in The Guardian on the 3rd of December was his claim that no science behind demands for phase-out of fossil fuel.
He says there is no science behind demands for phase-out of fossil fuels.
That's fake.
He said that. There is no...
It is interesting, because that was a headline in The Guardian, and obviously it stormed a massive...
Let's keep it up for a bit longer.
Keep it up
because you need to examine the words.
Exactly.
It's important, the words that were used.
The words are very important, because no science behind demands for a phase-out of fossil fuels. And you have to put this in the background of Greta Thunberg, when she heard he was going to be appointed the head of the biggest oil company. She said it was completely ridiculous. And the most obvious conflict there can be possible if you got on that sort of basis. So what do you reckon? Do you think he said that?
Well, I wouldn't know. I don't know. It doesn't make much sense. But he's saying there's no scientific reason for saying it's possible to phase out.
Well, it sounds like climate denial, doesn't it? Which, of course, going by all the things, people would say that's sort of fake.
But he's the president of COP28.
And that was the worrying thing. So it's that he basically denied that's what it was. He said he was misrepresented. But we have an audio recording, which we're playing now.
Oh, let's listen.
No science out there, or no scenario out there, that says that the phase out of fossil fuel is what's going to achieve 1.5. 1.5 is my North Star. And a phase down and a phase out of fossil fuel, in my view, is inevitable. It is essential, but we need to be real, serious, and pragmatic about it.
So the actual clip there, so what he actually said, and this is why the headline is slightly misrepresented, no science out there or no scenario out there that says the phase-out of fossil fuel is what's going to achieve 1.5. Now, that's obviously the reference to the Paris Agreement, and it's 1.5 about, basically compared to what they had at industrial levels. And just to put that into context, because people always bandied the figure about 1.5, and sometimes it's useful just to refresh what that actually talks about. It was 2015 that 195 countries signed the Paris Agreement, and what they agreed to do was limit the Earth's temperature increase to well below 2 degrees, and basically strive for 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial level. Now, pre-industrial level refers to a period from 1850 to 1900, and the average temperature then was about 13.5 degrees. So before the era of fossil fuels. What they're basically saying is it's going up at the moment. Currently, it's about 1.15 degrees above that. And so the difficulty is that every decade they've estimated it's going up by about 0.2 degrees. So that means we're behind that sort of promise. But to have the head of the COP28 making that sort of claim, say there's no proven science about this, would be wrong. He basically was saying he accepts the science, But what's going to happen is that we need to look at a better way of making sure there are other aspects that come into play. So it's a misleading headline, which is important to pull out in
But
his...
that's my point I was going to make, is that your explanation of it there took about a minute.
Yes.
You can't put that on a headline.
No.
Yes.
And that's the problem with headline writers. Often are pressing it down so much that they do occasionally lose the right way of
And by and
expressing
large,
it.
though, headline writers are so clever.
Yeah.
Some of the things you see, especially on the front of the tabloids, it's brilliant.
That
It's
one,
genius.
That was confusing anyway.
It was confusing,
wasn't a very
wasn't
good
it?
headline.
It wasn't a good headline, and I thought it was a slightly misleading thing on that sort of basis. To be kind as well, John Kerry, who celebrated his 80th birthday whilst in Dubai.
Did he?
Wasn't that good? He looks
He
a
looks very
spring
good
chicken.
for
He looks
80.
great for 80, doesn't he?
He was very thrilled.
He was,
with the
80th
way it
birthday was on
went.
the 11th of December. He said maybe it came out the wrong way. Well, I think it was probably an unfair bit of editing, and I think this is the danger, and why we always urge in this sort of section about question everything.
Yes.
We need to look at that sort of side. It gets worse, actually, because there were... You would think about, this is the claims, and I think to do him a service, because he actually, by the end of it, managed to convert a lot of the climate protesters and activists and saying, actually, he did a really good job because he got people to agree to something. And he was basically saying, look, our press is misleading. So I thought, well, here we are on GB News. We can make sure that he can watch this and say, well, we've put the record straight for him. This was the claim by President Mary Robinson, the chair of the Elders Group, and she was a former Irish president. She basically said, I read that your company is investing a lot more in fossil fuel in the future. Now, this is when they're talking about basically reducing and that sort of side. So do you think she said that? Do you think he said that?
This is Mary Robinson saying
Mary
this.
Robinson said, she accused him of saying that your company is investing a lot more in fossil fuel in the future. So this is in spite of saying
Well,
that
I'm
they're going
tempted
to...
to say yes, she said it.
I'll say no, she didn't then.
She didn't. And do you think is it a fact whether he would be investing or not?
Probably. Possibly.
Well, we do have the clip, I believe.
Let's have a quick look at the clip.
Is investing in a lot more fossil fuel in the future.
Yes, ma'am, you're reading your own media, which is biased and wrong. I am telling you, I am the man in charge, and it is wrong, ma'am. You need to listen to me, please.
I'm very pleased to hear it. I'm very pleased to hear it.
It is wrong. You guys write a lie and you believe it.
Okay.
So he basically, she made the claim saying invest in future, and he said no, that's wrong. That the press is misleading. Today, and actually it was yesterday, but early in the morning, the Guardian headline basically had this, which I think we can see the clip of the Guardian headline. COP president says his firm will keep investing in oil. So what they're actually saying is that he is planning to invest 150 billion over 7 years in oil and gas.
My goodness.
And that will maintain, what he's saying, it will maintain the current production levels rather than increase output. Finally, let's just...
No, we haven't got any more time. We've run out of time.
The Guardian's had some good publicity this morning.
They've had some great publicity. Other newspapers are available.
Good and bad, yeah. Sorry, we've got to wind up there. It's been a very busy morning, but we've come to the end of Good Morning Britain. Good Morning Britain. I've done too many of these programmes.
Get off!
GB News Breakfast. Here's Saturday Morning Live.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, I'm Alex Deakin. This is your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. It's going to be a cloudy but mild weekend. Most of us will be dry, but where it rains, it's going to rain hard. In northwest Scotland, it's going to turn very soggy. Already a bit damp here, but the rain's going to get heavier and more persistent through the rest of the day, and it will still be blustery. Quite breezy elsewhere, but bar a bit of drizzle at times over the hills of Wales and northwest England. Most places will stay dry, but don't expect much blue sky. It's just grey, but mild. Temperatures in double figures, 12, maybe even 13 in one or two places. It'll be a mild night as well, but it's going to be a very wet night in northwest Scotland. So we have weather warnings in place here, an amber warning covering parts of the Western Highlands, eastern parts of Skye and northern parts of Argyll.